going on, everybody? Welcome back to the Project Manga Podcast, where we cover One Piece, My Hero, Black Clover, Mashle, Dr. Stone, and Jujutsu Kaisen week to week. Back this week covering Weekly Shonen Jump issue number 24. I'm your host, Eagle.
And I'm Knox.
And I'm Nickums.
And as always, before we get started with the discussion tonight, we would ask you to look in the description box down below where you can find ways to follow all of our individual social media accounts like Twitter, join our online communities like Discord, listen to the Project Manga Podcast wherever you usually listen to podcasts at. Also, you can find ways to support us, such as our online store or our Patreon.
Yes, sir.
And while you're down there, you can find timestamps to conveniently navigate yourself through the video and skip to any given discussion and skip spoilers if need be.
Yes, sir.
With all that said, it's been too long.
It's been too long. The prodigal son. I'm great,
Fuck,
dude.
man.
I'm so excited. I'm coming into this review with an energy that I feel like I haven't had going into reviews in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Glad to have you back, brother.
Hell yeah, man.
Mhm.
Glad to be back.
Mhm.
So, with no ado, fuck it.
Yes.
Let's jump right into chapter 148 of Jujutsu Kaisen. Perfect preparation.
Oh boy.
Ah,
Neat cover
Yeah.
page or whatever. Obviously,
Yeah.
Maki and Mai, right?
Right.
Twins.
Yes.
yeah.
Now I was looking. I was doing some Google searches. You know, like what do like two twins look like in the womb, right?
Yeah.
Normally, the umbilical cords are not all twisted and tangled like this. This is actually like maybe dangerous or whatever. But
Yep.
I would say this is probably symbolism in some way, right? Like
Right.
either saying like Mai and Maki are like very close, you know what I mean? Or that like, you know, their lives are somehow tangled together.
Their
you know
fates
what I
are
mean?
tied together.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
Ooh,
right.
that. I like that. When you said that it's maybe dangerous, I was wondering if the symbolism could maybe extend to like how complicated or toxic their relationship is.
Oh, sure.
And maybe you tie that into what kind of embryonic, like situation they had growing up in the
Sure,
womb.
sure.
You know what I mean, I don't know.
Mhm.
That's just something that came into my
Yeah,
mind
yeah,
when
yeah.
you commented on it. But I love symbolism shit like that, bro.
Yep.
Trying to decide what.
But
it
damn, what a
is, what it
chapter
is.
for Maki.
Yeah,
huh?
dude, this chapter
Yeah.
for Maki, like you want to call it like, like whenever in Jujutsu Kaisen, I feel like it's like in other series, when a character has like a dedicated chapter that you haven't seen, for a while, or who hasn't had a dedicated chapter, in a while, you want to say like, oh, this is a love letter, to those fans of the character. But obviously, with the end of the chapter, it kind of inside of Jujutsu Kaisen, you can never be too hyped for a character for too long. You know what I mean? And even
Right.
though this felt like such an incredible chapter for Maki and her development and learning about the Zenin clan, we obviously know how it ends. And it's like, Gege, can you just give us, just a little? Can we have some fun for a little bit? In
Wow.
this comic book. But anyway,
Like, man.
yeah, but I love this chapter for Maki. I love, like I was saying, what it does for furthering our understanding,
Mhm.
of the Zenin clan and how they kind of function in house.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? As shitty of a, of a group
Bunch
as
of
they are.
savages.
Yeah, this is kind of what we need: messy clan politics, right? You know what I mean? This
Yeah,
is
yeah.
something that we always knew was coming and that we've talked about, that we've wanted on this show, for a while. And now that we're getting it, it's like it's not as much hype to get new information as it is like, holy shit, these guys suck. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So
For
Well,
real.
it's something I kind of expected too when Gojo was like sealed and completely out of the picture, and then also once he got sentenced the way he did,
mhm.
I was like, these other clans are about to start moving.
Exactly.
Right.
So it's like, fuck, man.
Yeah.
But
Mm-hmm.
I did not expect Buddy to be waiting in the fucking vault for him, man.
Right,
He
right.
was
Yo.
like,
And these
I
are the
just like,
yeah.
no, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, these are the kind of twists that you see,
Mhm.
in Jujutsu Kaisen, where like you can have like the holy shit Kenjaku twist, but then you can
Right.
also have like the holy shit, like, Mai and Maki's parents are trying to execute them now twist, and it feels so good
Right.
going into the chapter because you're like, Megumi's clan head, they had a conversation. He's like, she's like, I want to go get the curse tools. I'm about to go do that. You know what I'm
Finally
saying?
feels like a little bit of a W.
Yeah.
And it's like, mm-mm,
Yeah.
nah.
It's like, no, you come back to the crib. Everything's supposed to be good. Megumi is the clan head. He said, go ahead. He gave me permission. I am supposed to be here. And then
Mhm.
it's like, well, guess what? We have this elaborate plot, inside of the Zenin household to kind of try to, strong arm ourselves into that Gojo house position now that the Gojo house has fallen. You know what I
Yep.
mean? And everyone is thinking of how to, most efficiently bring their clan up to power. And obviously we're focusing on the Zenin clan first. And the way that they, go about it with this conversation with Jinichi and Naoya, I think I can't remember the name of Toji's like brother, I think is who this character is. And I want to say his name is Jinichi, but I haven't seen the name since that chapter, but so don't quote me on that. But anyway, this conversation with Naoya and Jinichi is so fire because like one, it's like super like gross and like detestable, like how could you do that? But then if you remove like emotions and like everything from it, we understand like how the clan situation like is operating inside of Jujutsu Kaisen. So we know that there's like a base level of scumbag that just needs to exist when you're talking about like the heads of these clans. So like removing all of the emotions of what they're, from what they're trying to do and who they're trying to hurt that we like, this makes a lot of sense as a power play for the clan. So it challenges the outlook, at least for me when I'm reading it, because I'm like, I want to hate these guys, but like, and there's definitely a reason to. They suck no matter what. But trying to put, yourselves in their shoes as much as you can, this conversation makes a lot of sense, and this move makes a lot of sense for what they're trying to do. So it's I feel like what the scene does is it shows Gege's, military mind inside of what he wants his pieces to do that are in positions of power, but it also obviously shows the shitty, side of the Zenin clan at the same time. It's just a really powerful scene, I feel like, for what the comic eventually goes into in the conflict. So I think it's a great setup for that.
For
They're
sure.
like, nah, we're about to let him take the clan head, and then we gonna falsely accuse him of some shit.
Yeah.
Not really falsely, because they are moving trying to do exactly what they were saying, but
but using the false accusation against Gojo in their favor, right? Like, okay, Gojo has been branded a bad guy, and we know that they fuck with Gojo. They're trying to save Gojo, so we're going to use that against them to get us in power, where we want to be in power over Megami, right? So yeah, it's like it's a big brain play for sure. It makes a lot of sense.
When Gojo comes out of the prison realm, man, I want to see him with like a big ass hermit beard. I don't know, just looking scraggly.
I think they said time doesn't move in there.
Y'all left me in there for so long.
Yeah.
He's Gojo.
If he came out with a beard, that would be some shit. Just for like the fandom and like the fangirls, right? Because like in Jujutsu Kaisen, like I think we make a comment about how they don't, sexualize the female characters, which is great, but they super sexualize the male characters, like kind of like in response to that. And especially in the anime, they like go super crazy with that, obviously, because Gege's, art style doesn't really lend too much, on the attractive side of things for like character designs. I mean, they look great, but I mean, like they're not hot inherently like most manga art is, you know what I mean? So the anime does a lot for that. And they even like gave Mahito like way more shirtless muscles in the anime than he like has in the manga and shit like that, you know what I mean? So if Gojo comes out the box looking any prettier than he did going in, the internet's gonna be
about to go crazy.
But I'm pretty sure they said that time doesn't move in the prison realm, so the likelihood is very low for that. But that's funny.
Sure. Before we get into like this fight between Maki and her father, or whatever, I think like the whole setup of this chapter is super interesting, right? Where like Maki's talking to Naoya, and we get a flashback of Naoya and how he used to bully Maki, and then Maki's going through this tunnel, and her mother is like, God, I like hate you. Like, why don't you just do anything I say or whatever, right? And then okay, go further. Maki talking with Megumi in a different scene. Then Maki talking to her father, right? Like, it's just crazy how it's like Maki just cannot fucking win. You know what I mean? Like this
at all. And I wasn't ready to find out that the mom sucks this bad.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you kind of like held out hope, like that these guys are like horrible misogynists and whatever. You know what I mean? And you hold out hope that the women, are obviously complacent in the goings on of the clan, but maybe they don't want it to be that way and they're just scared to speak out against it. But no, we have like full support from this mom in whatever Ogi and Jinichi and Naoya and like the patriarchy like wants. And it's like, bro, we can't even get reprieve from the mom. She's that lost. Like it's that the indoctrination is like that, all, surrounding and all powerful that like even the mom, dude, like that sucks. I thought if anybody was going to be tight, it was going to be the mom.
Right.
Well, and it's a nice look into that type of character, because usually when you get this type of character in a story where they're in a world where something is very prominent and they don't have it, like usually like we saw in the first part of the story from Maki, like they show out and they do their thing against these people and show them that like you don't need this thing. I'm about to be colder than all y'all, but like damn man, it's rough for Maki. Like it's just
Yeah.
it's not it's a nice different different storytelling touch on that type of
Right.
character
Right.
from Gege. I think it's like,
Absolutely.
man.
And it's even more of a spit in the face to Maki's character because they like Mai more just because she's pretty and complacent. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Maki has all of the strength, you know what I mean? Like that they should respect, you know what I mean? But it's not cursed energy oriented. So she's less than nothing to them, even though she arguably shows the most prominent promise out of all of the younger Zenins that we've seen. You know what I mean? I mean, obviously Megumi has a domain expansion and his potential is wild and he's a great character, don't get me wrong. But like from a brass taxes, like down to business standpoint, Maki is like the shining star of the Zenin clan as far as what we've seen on screen in the comic book. You know what I mean? So her situation is so crazy. She has to go through like a situation that I don't think has been you know, shown this well in shonen manga, at least in anything that I've read of it. You know what I mean? Like, this is a completely new situation and like such an interesting one for a female character to have to kind of go through, and all of the nuances and complexities that comes with Maki's character arc. I feel like this is, and she's not as like used in Jujutsu Kaisen as like, you know, Nobara, for example. I'm pretty sure she has less screen time than Nobara, but like for her purpose in the story, whenever Maki is there, I feel like there's a little bit more of a hype factor behind it than when Nobara does things, because you kind of expect Nobara to always be there doing things in that Sakura role, whereas you're not sure, you know, how often they're going to use any other, you know, prominent female characters in a shonen story. So I think it's crazy how we're getting this focus on Maki, and it's so it's so like it's so deep, like it gives us more information on her, but it's also dark, you know what I mean? And that comes with Jujutsu Kaisen, but I feel like now that we're finally exploring a character, you know, and their internal situation and external, you know, influence over the narrative at hand, I feel like this is a very dark avenue to take Maki down right now going into the Culling games, I guess is what I'm trying to say, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Shoot. But yeah, this fight is wild. I love that they just like set it up right at the beginning. You know, he Ogi, like, you know, starts off with, you know, the falling blossom emotion, and it kind of explains his, you know, strategy, right? Like, all right, I'm using this like different mode of falling blossom emotion. I know she's probably going to have a curse tool I don't really understand. I'm going to, you know, take all these measures to, I'm just gonna take all this into account and win or whatever. And then it's like flips to Maki, and it's like, well, you know, like he's probably gonna do this, and so I'm gonna use, you know, this super sick curse tool, Dragon Bone or whatever, you know.
Yes. And I love her curse tool. I want to talk about the falling blossom emotion real quick, because the narration that we have, like for the first narration box, is just rehashing information that we got from Naobito for the most part. But then when Naobito was fighting the Death Swarm inside of Dagon's domain during the Shibuya incident. But the rest of the dialogue here is so different from what I remember of the scan. I feel like it goes more in the scan. It talks more about how Ogi takes the falling blossom emotion and specifically converts it into like an EI, you know, EI jutsu application. They focus a little bit more about that in the scanned version of the translation, because in here it says the domain countermeasure falling blossom emotion changes when in a sword standoff. When used in a sword standoff, it covers itself in curse energy to attack anything it comes in contact with, and that's basically you know, about the same thing that it says in the scan, but specifically the dialogue for it was like, okay, the falling blossom emotion was used by Naobito in this way because he's not a swordsman, but like Ogi, you know, can take that technique and integrate it, you know, into his. It sounded more like it was like a special move of Ogi's rather than something that like people can just normally do if they have a sword. You know what I mean? So that was a cool difference. It's not a drastic difference or anything like that, but from the scan to the translation, I felt like I fucked with the scan's translation a little bit more in that regard, just because it specifically talked about the EI jutsu and whatnot.
Right. I feel like the first like dialogue box you're talking about, like this narration box, is a little clumsy sounding, right? Where it's like it changes when used in a sword standoff it covers itself in cursed energy. Like, what the heck does that mean? It covers itself in cursed energy? Like, isn't it talking about covering the sword in cursed energy?
Yeah,
You know what I
exactly.
mean?
You're right, because the falling blossom emotion is bolded. So you'd
Right.
think that the continuation of the narration is talking about the falling blossom emotion itself. So when it says the
Right.
countermeasure
Right.
falling blossom emotion changes when using a sword standoff, it covers itself in cursed energy. So the falling blossom emotion covers itself in cursed energy? No, it's
Right.
obviously
Just
talking
sounds
about,
weird.
yeah, it sounds weird as shit. Yeah, for sure.
Right. But like, I was reading a little bit on the wiki or whatever, like to
Yeah.
try and like remind myself exactly what falling blossom emotion was described of before, right? And
Right,
it's like the difference that you're kind of hinting at here is that like when Naobito used it, and normally when you use it, it only would respond to a domain attack, like the
Right.
sure hit domain attack, and
Right.
it would hit it and negate it, right?
Right.
But this is something that would actually do physical attacks,
Right.
aka what Maki is going to be using in this
Mhm.
battle.
Mhm.
So it's just weird that like doesn't fully explain that very
Right.
well, I think,
And
in the dialogue box.
Even more so, inside of Naobito's application of the falling blossom emotion, it was a passive situation where he had the falling blossom emotion aura, and then when the death swarm manifested, it automatically attacked it without maybe Naobito thought about, I don't know, but it's from what I remember of the Shibuya incident panel, it said it just does this when it enters a certain proximity, whereas the falling blossom emotion that Ogi is using here seems to be an activated ability. When he draws his sword, then you get the application of the technique on the sword itself. So
Sure.
it's a completely different situation, and I feel like the official translation just didn't do a good job of explaining the differences of it. At least from what I saw in the unofficial scan, made it feel a lot better and a lot more personal, and just explained it a little bit better in my opinion. But
for sure.
Anyway, meanwhile, Maki wields Juzo Kumiya's masterpiece. So we have a name here. I can't remember if this is a name that we've gotten before as far as like a cursed tool weaponsmith.
It's the coat rack guy.
Coat rack guy. Oh,
I'm
Juzo.
gonna make Gojo. I'm gonna make
yes.
Gojo into a coat rack. This is his weapon.
And that's why they're showing Buddy behind the thing. Exactly.
That's like, if you remember, like a few chapters ago, she was like, "Tell me where his warehouse is." His workshop. Tell me where his workshop is. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Because I looked at this and I had completely forgotten that character, and I was like Juzo Kumiya, and I just like automatically wanted to go to
It must be some famous dude.
Famous, weaponsmith potential story arc later where we go to this dude's forge or something. I thought all types of shit, but yeah, it's that dude. Turn Gojo into a coat rack. He wants to. Yeah, I completely remember that now. Thank you very much. Anyway, this sword is tight. It accumulates force and cursed energy and ejects them out of the back of the blade in accordance with the user's will. So
almost like the application of the lady's axe from Kaiju number 8, right?
Yes,
the girl's axe.
Yeah. What I thought of right away was how they kind of like explained Black Panther's suit in the Black Panther movie in the MCU, where he had the one where it like took all of the kinetic energy and stored it, and then could like shoot it out in a shockwave whenever T'Challa wanted to. You know what I mean? So he would square up with you and hand to hand for a while, and you would see the vibranium glowing where he would get hit, and it would like store that energy, and then he'd be glowing, and his fucking limit break gauge would be blinking. You know what I mean? And then and then he he shoots it out in a shockwave. So that's what I thought at first. But yes, Kaiju number 8, Kikaru's axe is also something else similar to that. But
I would say this is more akin to what you're talking about, because it does mention how it accumulates force and cursed energy.
Right.
So
yeah, so it's basically just fight with this sword for as long as you want, and then whenever you need, a leverage boost for any reason, boom, you can shoot it out the back of the jets on the back of the blade, which we see here, right? Because Ogi goes for his first strike, slink, and then she blocks it, absorbs that kinetic energy and that cursed energy probably also as well, and then turns it into the jet propulsion that breaks Ogi's blade. And the choreography inside of this fight, this is something that we might not even need to speak on too much, because it's obviously a major point of Gege's art in general, and we speak on it constantly. But my god, as a sword nerd, this exchange is like beautiful, because at first I was like, okay, Gege has two options with this, and in the scan, hold on, let me double check here. I'll take advantage of the fact that he's unfamiliar with the Cursed Tool's ability and feign entering a single strike duel while intending to strike a second or third time. That sounds great, but in the scan, they use, you know, the proper like sword duel terms like
sure.
EI, Batoji. Like they're actually having more of like a technical, you know, sword terminology, you know, dialogue, lines of dialogue in that regard. So that hyped me up so much more going into the conflict here. And I was like so ready for this to be like okay, they're putting a lot of emphasis on EI here. Like the narration box for Ogi's application of Falling Blossom emotion in the scan mentioned EI jutsu. And then Maki's own dialogue, the superimposed dialogue at the bottom left of page 13, also in the scan was mentioning EI jutsu. So I'm sitting here going into the confrontation in the scan thinking this is just going to be a one strike. They all, you know, they clash and then they're on opposite sides of each other, black silhouette, you know what I mean? And then one of them explodes with blood and like falls over. I thought it was going to be something like that because of the way that it was kind of like set up in that way. But there was so much more choreography here than what I expected in like an EI duel, you know what I mean? Because it is so formulaic as far as what we've seen, you know, those sword fights kind of do. And I understand this isn't Samurai Jack and it's not the 90s, you know what I mean? We've kind of evolved from that, you know, kind of choreography in swordsmanship, but you never know when you're going to see that scene of literally just the one attack and then someone falls over. I'm very glad that Gege gave us a lot more, you know, technical choreography inside of what was actually happening once the swords were drawn, you know, so it makes this situation like imagine if this was literally just one strike and then Maki fell over, you know what I mean? So, but I love everything about this exchange, bro. You could feel like every single, and I feel like a lot of it comes from the explanation that Maki gave of what she wanted to happen before the clash started. So we could kind of follow, you know, the events of the clashes. And I mean, it's not hard to follow Jujutsu Kaisen action anyway, despite the art style. But like this was just, I could feel, it felt like it was moving to me. Like I felt like I was watching an anime when I was reading this, and that's
when
what
I was reading it
does.
I was like literally like putting my hands like in the positions of like the grips and stuff, right? I'm like, okay, I'm start here. Okay, then I slash up, and then I like switch my grip, and then I slash down. It's like, oh my god, like you could do it. You could like literally go frame by frame and literally piece together this entire fight as usual, right? In Jujutsu Kaisen, just feels so good. I wanted to comment on page 15, right?
Yeah.
Where after she, you know, parries the first slash, right? And so she's holding with her right hand, and she's got a grip where it's like, you know, like
downward, blade going downward from the bottom of the hand.
Right. Now she flips over her hand. And the sword is like pointing down, right? The sword is down, but she slashes down because the minute she grabs the sword again after switching her grip, she turns on the jets. Jets down. Oh my god, it's so tight.
Fire. And then breaks Ogi's blade, and Ogi's like, and then she fucking like dashes around his body to like do, you know, the finishing slash. And then boom.
And look at on 16, on the bottom panel of 16, where like the three jets are in that motion, right? So like you can see the motion is actually the jets propelling her past him and around and spinning around. So sick. So sick.
So I'm wondering what the bottom left panel of 17 is showing.
Yeah.
I think this is the only thing that confused me.
Innards,
right? So if it's innards, it's definitely innards, right? But like, okay, so it's showing that because so we saw in the final double spread that Ogi slashed her down the side of the face and then subsequently down like the midsection or whatever. This we can follow this slice down Maki's body, so it makes sense that you'd show, you know, innards, I guess, since her innards are getting slashed afterwards. But like, there's no damage on the innards here. It's like it's just a picture of them. I'm so confused on this right now.
So how I think this is going is that on the bottom of 17, right? That is actually Ogi's innards, right? So imagine, on the top of 17, Maki is slashing up at Ogi, and then you see Ogi, and then you see this attack coming up at that same exact angle that Maki's doing into innards, right? Now go to the next page, go to 18.
Oh,
this top is super interesting, right? Because I feel like what he's doing is almost like teleporting, or like, you know, going very quickly backward. Thereby, and you can see
dodging the innards attack.
Dodging the innards, but you can see the slash through his the left body, right? Through the left body, which is a little more opaque, a little more darker.
Right.
You can almost see the slash of Maki through him, but I think that was a miss, right? A miss.
Right.
He
And that's
dodges
why
back.
the after image is there in the double spread, is
Right.
because he's stepping away from that fatal wound that she was going to deliver, so that he can apply his finishing move. And
but then he goes forward. He goes forward, and that's how he gets hit in the face. So he like dodged the midsection, but got hit in the face, and then he slashed like
I love
down through her guts or whatever.
So what that innards panel was doing is basically the same thing as you remember when in Heaven's Arena, when in Hunter x Hunter, when Sadaso, the dude with like the fucking laugh now cry later theater like face,
sure
that dude, and he had like the crazy arm that suffocates you or whatever, and he went to go kidnap Zushi in order to get leverage on Killua and Gon so that they could throw their matches or whatever. So when he did that, Killua was like, all right, I'm gonna see you later, buddy. And then he shows up in his fucking like room later that night, and then goes to go slash him down the head, and you literally see the animation of the knife slicing his face in half. But then the next frame, it's just Killua with the knife barely over his head, and he didn't actually cut him in half because like whatever technique they wanted to show in. And I'm pretty sure you see that in the manga too. You know what I mean? It's just you were going to get hit but didn't. And I guess in this situation it's a little bit different because they're actually in action, and that one is a little bit more about
it wasn't
malice.
Just pure aura and malice. But like I do
it's
feel
a similar
like
situation. I feel like
it's similar,
where it shows you what could have been if he didn't perfectly sidestep it at the last moment. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
So I do wonder if this is like a technique of some kind, like related to Naobito and Naoya's like super quick stuff, because like it seems like he's about to get cut in that innards panel, right?
I want to say that that's just high level swordsman footwork at play, because he knows that he has the energy sword inside of the broken blade. You know what I mean? So it's more of like an experience inside of swordsmanship positioning that allowed him to dodge, and then he stepped back into it to get cut in the face because he was confident that his energy sword would deal the damage that it needed to. So I'm not go ahead.
Like if you look at the top right panel on 17, where the animation on the sword right in front of Maki's hand is like this, like kind of
sketchy and blurry.
It looks like almost like that is hitting the side of the guts and like pushing it in, like it's literally almost about to slice him.
And
he, at that exact instant is able to.
I totally agree. I totally agree.
So he steps back, like dodges the perfect dodge on the abdomen strike. And you want to know what a better example of this is? Like Toji versus Megumi, because there was that moment where Megumi was positive he got Toji, you know what I mean, and then Toji, his speed brought him out, and it showed the actual illustration of the strike landing, but then obviously the next panel is him perfectly dodging it at the last second. So I feel like it's something like that. But yes, I love that Eagle. It hits it shows the innards, because that's gonna be where the damage was going to be on Ogi, and then he perfectly sidesteps, shoots the energy out of the blade, steps back in to deal the damage to Maki. I definitely think his curse technique is related to just the blade and like just
now that you mention that, right? So like, is this Mai's technique? Mai can make bullets out of energy.
Fuck.
He can make swords out of energy. Right? That's his inherited technique that Mai got. But she only uses it for bullets because I don't know why, because guns are cool, I guess.
And that's just that is
do you agree?
Bro, yes I do.
That definitely could be it, yeah.
I think
that's fire to me right now. And obviously there's just the conversation happening in the moment, but like I want that to be what it is. You know what I mean? Like that's just such a cool narrative link and such an amazing like new application of that technique that we because that technique has always been so interesting to me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm like, I wonder what this looks like if it's not just one bullet in a gun per day, like Mai has it.
Right. Now, but it's one sword blade per day kind of thing. Or he can probably do more than one. And then also it kind of he is both of their father, right? So Maki got the strength and the sword fighting, Mai got the technique, right? If you combine them both, you get him.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
fire,
yeah.
dude. Nick, that's so fire, bro. I love that. I love the fun because I'm sitting here going like, okay, clearly the sword broke, and he supplemented that decrease in length of his sword with this spirit sword. Yeah, exactly. Like that's what I thought, and I'm sitting here going, either this is like I didn't have a really good explanation off the top of my head as far as like what the explanation for his technique would be if this was a curse technique, but then also in the back of my head I thought this was just a high level application of just raw Juryoku control.
Oh, sure.
Where you could go, my blade is broken, but guess what? I can make my cursed energy an extension of myself to the degree that I can supplement the length loss on my blade by just filling in that length with cursed energy, and it fits into the make your sword an extension of your body, like poetry that you see in samurai lore. You know what I mean? Like I was like so ready for Ogi to just be like, I'm that tight with Juryoku that I can keep my sword long even if it breaks. You know what I mean? But this being Mai's technique feels so much tighter to me.
Yeah.
I love that, Nick. You fucking killed the game on that. But I just want to say, I don't think Maki's done here. I think that she took this blow and like obviously this
through
is
the guts,
through the guts. Yeah, through the guts, that's fine, but she's got that heavenly restriction that kept her alive after the Jogo assault that killed Naobito. You know what I mean? So she's got a different body, you know what I mean?
I feel like you can already see her guts spilling out.
Yeah, you can. You can see, I was literally just looking at it, like it looks really bad. But even though like this still could be fatal damage if she doesn't get to a doctor right away, the heavenly restriction, just giving her the body that she has, could allow her to keep fighting and finish this fight before she has to go see an actual doctor. You know what I mean? So I definitely don't think this is the end of the fight, in my opinion.
Right. What if she pulls fucking the chairman, Netero, you know what I mean? But instead of like closing up the leg, she like sucks back up the guts with her ab muscles, or at least like closes up the slash with her ab muscles.
That's fine. That's fine, because we've seen like similar, like Zoro when he took the fucking Kamazo scythe to the chest and then just flexed that shit closed and didn't let Kamazo get the scythe back. You know what I mean? So that application of badassery in that moment with Zoro, that's setting a, that's obviously a standard of like expectation of physics inside of like Shonen. Like that's like a thing we see regularly. Fucking Killua went to go like, he's sharp when in the Phantom Troop arc, Yorkshin arc, when he's fighting like Maki or whatever, he like, and then Leorio turns the lights off so that they could like run away. Fucking Maki like grabbed Killua or whatever, and he couldn't run, so he's like, all right, I'm just about to kill this bitch then. And then he sharpens his hand, goes to stab her in the stomach, and she flexes her stomach muscles around his hand and doesn't let him get that shit back. You know what I mean? So we see stuff like that in anime, and manga. So if that was a direction that Gege wanted to take, I think that there's enough foundation there for that to feel good for us, on top of the heavenly restriction information that we already have with Maki's body. So I think that's cool. I think that's fine. I think there's a lot of things that Maki can do to kind of like supplement the pain or the damage, in whatever way. I think there's a lot set up for that. And if she does continue fighting despite taking such a drastic attack, I think it'll make sense. You know what I mean? And if she finishes this fight and does defeat Ogi Extreme Diff, and she's on her like last legs, she can crawl to, well, I mean, shit, dude, if she can't even move after this, how does she even leave?
Yeah,
because this is just like Ogi, right? So like if the whole clan knows that they want Megumi and Maki dead, she's in the belly of the beast right now. Even if she beats Ogi and she's like bleeding out, who's gonna come to save her? She needs to be able to walk.
What if she just dies right here?
No, you do not kill Maki like this after she survives something people already thought she died from. That would be so Gege, but like that would be the one that had me like, all right, enough, motherfucker. Like, stop. Like, I would actually start to be like, all right, Gege, you don't care about us.
Leave Maki alone.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, I just want to believe that Maki's like the kind of beast that could survive a wound like this and can keep fighting. Her sword's not broken. And if this is the maximum technique or whatever, like Maki's like technique or whatever, he's only got maybe another application of this left. You know what I mean? Like if he is better than Maki, which we obviously know that he is, And Maki has that much trouble creating just one bullet. There has to be some kind of limitation on this technique that doesn't say, okay, well, it's Ogi, so he can just spam it. Like, no, that caveat has to still be in effect there. Even if he can do it more than once, it can't be more than twice or 3 times. You know what I mean? So I think Maki, considering the fact that she did just take a drastic hit, but she does still have her entire blade available.
Right.
So, and if this did come down to like a Maki can't use her sword, Ogi's is broken. If he can't use that technique again, Maki's definitely beating the shit out of him in a fist fight.
Yeah.
So it's like,
oh sure,
yeah. I don't know, but
So weird that the dude's name is Ogi and you're also referring to like special sword technique.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's like, what the hell?
Cause see, and that's
Ogi.
that's funny that you bring
Ogi's
that up.
Ogi is such an Ogi. It's,
That's funny. That's funny that you bring that up because like when people, I remember on Twitter someone was like, so like before we met Ogi as a character, his name was kind of referred to in an off narration box in a previous chapter, and the name didn't really tell you much about the situation at all. It was very vague, and people were like, what does Ogi mean? And I remember Ogi as like hidden secret special technique from like Zoro's ability kit.
Right.
But then I like actually looked into it, and it's like, okay, the Ogi in this narration box is Ougi, and the Ogi in Zoro's attacks is just Ogi. You know what I mean? So so there was a difference there, but I was one of the people that was saying like I think they're talking about a special Zenin clan technique.
Oh sure,
you know what I mean, because of this word, you know what I mean. But now we know that it's an actual person.
But damn, the fucking flex this guy does at the end, right? Like, why couldn't I become the clan head? It's like
all my children are worthless.
But he's obviously very powerful, right? Like I was not expecting him to be this skilled.
And that quote hits so hard because of how much we understand of the Zenin clan up until this point. It's about successors. It's not just about you. If you want to be the clan head, great, you're strong enough to. Ogi is fucking fire, obviously.
Like you're cold, but in 20 years when you out of there, you about to be bitch made.
Yeah, exactly. Because your kids suck.
Shit.
Yeah, Mai sucks and Maki sucks for whatever reasons they've decided, which aren't it's not actual like objective suckiness. It's just the Zenin clan just doesn't like her, so he'll never have a proper successor to the throne. But really what this means is not because my children are worthless, it's because my children are all women is what it is. You know what I mean? Because like that's really like what I felt when he said that, you know what I mean? Because Maki is like, in my opinion, like if I had a daughter like Maki, trust me, son, I'd be shouting from the rooftops, it's the tightest daughter that's ever been born. You know what I mean? Like, but obviously they have their own...
but it's like the whole...
Exactly.
It's all based around cursed energy, man.
It's all based around cursed energy, and they have their norms and they have their expectations for how their clan operates. And even though we disagree with the Zenin clan through and through in pretty much every way of thinking that they have, at the end of the day, their clan is as prominent as it is because they have... followed us. They figured out a process. They have a formula. You know what I mean? So it makes sense that he would say something like this, even as shitty as it is. And he's even crying here in the last panel. Like he does not want to be doing this, but it's that indoctrination of the system and the understanding of the Zenin clan process that these people, it's so deeply rooted in these people that you're seeing that conflict in the art, not in the dialogue. Like he's saying my children are worthless. I understand, and I think the reason why he's crying is because he's like, my children are worthless as far as my understanding of the Zenin clan, but I still love my children, and that's why it hurts that I had to cut you down right here. And that's why he's crying, even though we could comfortably say he was a piece of shit.
I mean, it was his idea, though.
It was his idea, but that stems back to his understanding of what he thinks is best for the clan, which is an indoctrinated belief of this shitty system inside of this clan. So I think we're seeing like moral conflict in this last page where Ogi is like, I really shouldn't be doing this, but all of my military training, all of my everything regarding how I look at life tells me this is what I should be doing right now. You know what I mean? And that's a crazy conflict to kind of like, at least for me, in my opinion, to kind of come to the conclusion of in just a last panel of a chapter. And it's such a subtle detail that he's crying. I feel like
Right.
it's like a lot of people might even miss that detail. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
I definitely saw that he was crying.
Yeah.
My initial thought was that he was like just so salty about not being clan head that he was
That's what
crying.
I thought, too.
But I think yours makes more sense because I feel like if you were upset that you weren't clan head, it would be anger,
right.
right?
Right.
But he's crying, and that I think lends more towards your explanation, Doc. So
Sure.
yeah, that's very interesting.
Hell yeah. I'm excited
Oh, yeah,
to see the
well-
next chapter, not just to see like what happens to Maki, but like to see if we get more, you know, just exposition on this emotional situation inside
Yes,
of Ogi.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or I mean, I don't know. I mean, I'd like to see even go into how the other clan is moving too. You know, the Kamo.
Yeah.
Oh, I gotta
clan,
see. We gotta see the
what-
Kamo.
what's-
We gotta see the
what
Kamo
they're
soon.
on.
I
See
think
what
I
they're
think we'll see
on.
Kamo stuff. Like obviously people want to get to the culling game, but I think what
Yep.
Gege is doing is letting us know, because they introduced the culling game, so the culling game's rules chapters ago. But it's taking us so long to get to the actual culling game itself. I think because Gege wants to flesh out all of the parties involved to a respectable extent before the high octane full on action starts. You know what I mean? So I think that we're going to get visits from chapters like these inside of the Zenin clan situation. I think we're going to get situations inside of Noritoshi Kamo 3. I think is his. I think he's the third one. You know what I mean? So like him, the student Kamo. And his team. I think that we will see, a lot of that before we actually jump into the raw action of the culling game, and I'm super excited for that.
Yep.
Hell yeah.
Well, shit, I think that about does it for this chapter. So with that, I think we can go ahead and get right into chapter 196 of Dr. Stone, Scientist All Alone.
Look at this
And
color.
I particularly enjoyed this chapter because I've always the color spread. Let's talk about the color spread. real
Yes,
quick,
sir.
Because Senku looking real gas, man.
We even got
Yes.
the first page is like Suika like in color, like all by like
Oh,
first
yeah.
page. Yeah. Like this is just like fire two color pages.
After
Going
she,
into the
Right.
chapter.
embroiders the credo on her shit with
Yeah.
the blood, you know what I'm saying?
With blood,
E equals MC
yes.
squared.
Fire.
And like even the chapter title, right? Like Scientist All Alone. Like so the past like few chapters, there's been humanity or Homo sapiens all alone, treasure hunter all alone as Suika is like
Yeah.
finding this treasure of the revival fluid, right?
Yeah.
Like trying to find out where more revival fluid is. And now
Right.
scientists all alone. I love the
Yes.
progression there.
Yes, and
Yeah.
I love her first line of dialogue. Suika's all alone in the world now, but a little science should be able to revive everyone. Like that's such a wholesome quote to start the chapter with, but also it feels like flavor text almost that you see like at the end of a chapter superimposed,
Sure.
from like, the god being that writes, like the mangaka like puts their little text over, like it
Sure.
felt like dialogue like that, you know what I mean? And it's just like a great vibe to start the chapter off with. But yeah, go ahead, Eagle. You were gonna.
It was
go
just
into your thoughts.
I particularly enjoyed this chapter as someone who's always like enjoyed Suika's character and seeing her come through in times when she needs to, because she always does, man.
Yeah.
She's that clutch character who always just at the last moment
Yes.
when you need something, she'll come through with it.
And the way that she
Yeah.
comes through with it is in her own like childlike, naive, outlook of the world. Like while
Yep.
you have Senku constantly thinking of calculations, you have Kaseki constantly thinking of measurements, you have Suika that doesn't really fit into a specific skill set, but is just that clutch shooter that always has what the story needs when all of the
now-
other geniuses are kind of out of commission or can't really apply themselves in a certain situation.
Who now is thrown into a situation where she has to step up and really do
Yeah.
some science and like
Yeah.
go trial and error through these processes and try and make her way through it. At first, she's like, okay, she kind of wrote off the third method because it took too
Yep.
long.
Yep.
But at the end, it almost felt like maybe not just for her, but like Senku, put that third method in there as a failsafe for somebody who isn't as scientifically inclined
Yes.
like Suika
Yes.
to be able to do it. Because at the end of the
100%.
chapter,
Wow.
when he wakes up, he says, "Wow, 7 years. You worked quickly, didn't you?"
So he
Yeah.
was
Like,
expecting it to take
a much longer process. Yeah.
So
Right.
that means that
And
he always knew that she would use the third method, and he made it for
Right.
someone like
Yeah.
Suika. Wow, Eagle fam! I did not even think about that like at all. That's such a cool thought.
I think you're doubly right because like if you like Wikipedia like this Ostwald process or whatever, right?
Mhm.
Like if you like just looking through the steps on Wikipedia, there's no possible way that she would have been able to do it, right? You need like super pressurized, atmosphere. You need like super high temperature, way more than you'd ever be able to make in like a fire, in like a campfire. You know what I mean?
You need Kaseki and a bunch of people to heat it up with the fucking
Right.
the billows and shit.
Right. And then like even like the second one, the electrical arc method, you see her putting wires together, right? Like maybe I'll do this or whatever, right? And it goes very poorly.
Yeah.
She's a little kid, right? Like she's not going to be able to fully do an electrical type method, right? So like you're totally right. She really did need the kind of it might take a while, but it's like science for dummies. You know what I mean? Like
exactly.
Anyone can do this.
Novice level,
novice.
And she really did like just. I don't know. She was really firing on all cylinders. Used Chelsea's map to navigate to different places she needed to get different stuff, like the bird poop island.
She was on that FOAC.
Yeah, bro.
Hey, that is I just want to make a comment because it's been a long time since you've been back on the show, and you literally just called back to the very first episode of the Project Manga podcast when you said that. And I don't even know if you because in the first episode that we ever did, it was like an interview where we just had icebreaker questions to get to know us better as fans. And one of the questions was like, what makes a story arc, or whatever. I don't remember what the question that was asked, but when Eagle went up for his time, he's like, okay, so I put this to an acronym. And it's FOAC, fire on all cylinders, but it was a double entendre, where it also had a second meaning as an acronym where it's like, it gives you feels, it gives you boom, boom. And it like went down. Nice. It was such a cool like segment of that conversation, and like hearing fire on all cylinders again is very nostalgic.
Brought you back.
Yeah. Sorry. Keep going.
But yeah, it's just, this was a great chapter to me. And we had a lot of cool little funny, sweet Suika moments. And then to see just, how long she was grinding, because like at the end when it just switched kind of right to that ending where she's 7 years older.
Yeah.
And it's like, whoa, Suika, what the fuck?
And see, me and Nick, I feel like we're kind of talking about this in like earlier, Dr. Stone reviews about like how long this is actually going to take Suika to do this, and how many, avenues that Riichiro Inagaki could take in the progression of this area of the narrative, right? And when it comes to Suika, I think we talked about how she could just have, the perfect formula for revival fluid and then just go do it, you know what I mean? Like step by step. But like when it comes to the revival fluid, and this is kind of like stemming off of the point that you made at the beginning, Eagle, where you have the first method, the second method, and the third method. The third method is for dummies. The first two are for like Senku and Kiseki types that are all working together as a team to get it done faster. And the way that Nick kind of like painted it as like, it makes sense that Senku, would do it this way. And now that we have the information, it makes all the sense in the world. But when we were kind of speculating on it before we had the information from this chapter, we didn't really think about like I feel like we didn't think about the different methods to make revival fluid. We just always knew revival fluid as the thing Senku makes to revive people. But now the actual scientific application of this stuff really starts to show itself, because this isn't the what was it? The fucking the Otswald process and the electrical arc method literally never brought up before inside of the creation, or at least from what I remember. Like I don't remember
the platinum from Treasure Island was for the Oswald process.
Oh, sure, okay.
So like he knew he was going to do it, but that's another point why she couldn't do it, right? She needs platinum to even do it. You know what I mean? So
I guess the point that I'm making here is that like even though and obviously I didn't remember until you just reminded me, but even though like we have that platinum situation in the background, as far as like just actually seeing all of the processes on how to make an revival fluid, I don't think we've ever seen it like 1, 2, 3 in this way and explained in this way, right? But like this is, and a lot of that I feel like holds itself to the fact that we're reading a fictional story, and we're not going to expect to see literal textbooks of science information, because it has to still be entertaining to anyone who reads it and things like that. But then when it comes down to brass taxes, and it's like, okay, now Suika has to do this, and you're actually looking into the grimoire of Senku's scientific genius, you see that yes, it makes sense that there are multiple ways that you can do this, some easier than others. You know what I mean? And I feel like that's one thing that Riichiro Inagaki could always, have implemented in his storytelling, but kind of like saves it so that we can suspend belief and follow a fictional story. But then when you need to inject that reality of the situation, it's like, okay, now Suika has to do this, and it's not a fantasy fun game anymore where Senku's the superhuman that does everything. Now a regular person has to try to do what Senku does, and you look in his fucking like book of like tricks, and it's like, okay, like this is why Senku does this. You know what I mean? So I like how it actually like shows, how you would actually have to go about this. We're kind of like, as the audience, living vicariously through Suika in this moment, where you look at the options you have and everything looks like Chinese, or you know what I mean? You just don't understand it. Well, you always have Senku there to say, it's just this and it's just that, and boom, 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 boom. And there's a lot of fluff, or not fluff, but there's a lot of shit that's injected to make the ride easier, so you don't have to think about all the raw scientific processes all the time. But then Riichiro Inagaki going, oh, hey, that stuff is still a thing. Here's what it looks like when someone else besides Senku tries to do it. I feel like this chapter does a lot for that understanding of just how serious this situation is when you don't have a Senku.
And on that note, especially, it's almost poetic in a way, because like through all the advancements they made through the Science Kingdom and new inventions and stuff, like he has marked these the Otswald and the electrical arc as number 1 and 2, but because everybody's missing and Suika is like only has rudimentary science knowledge, she has to go back to the original way that Senku did it, right? Because he did it originally with the bat guano converted into nitric acid. But even without the help of that bat guano cave, she has to figure out a way to do it the original way that Senku did.
Right. She doesn't have the convenience of having like the concentrated form of this bat guano dripping from a natural source. She has to make like a bird shit culture farm. And like fucking... She doesn't have the 7,500 years of nature creating this naturally. You know what I mean? She has to go and do it from scratch, which is something even Senku didn't have to do. You know what I mean? Which makes this even more impressive almost. Because obviously more impressive because Suika's doing it. You know what I mean? But it did take her a lot longer than it took Senku. You know what I mean? Senku did this shit in like 6 months. Took her fucking 7 years.
But like you were just saying, it was already in that nitric acid form that she had to convert the bird shit to.
Exactly.
So that's what probably took a lot of time.
Now Senku, he also had to do it quickly because he was playing with the summertime, right? Like he literally he knew he was going to revive in spring, or like he didn't try breaking out until he counted to springtime. And because that's springtime in Japan, right? Luckily, in the Amazon, it's year-round warm. You know what I mean? So like, there's no risk of Suika like starving to death in the winter. Good shit. Yeah.
Yes. Great comment there. Wow.
I love the poetry of speaking of how poetic this chapter is, right? Like on page 13, Suika, she is like, oh, there's so much to keep in my mind or whatever, right? Like I need to draw it out like Senku does, right? And we see one of these diagrams that we've seen so many times before, but drawn by Suika or whatever. Looks so cute on the one hand,
like the Sulfurina.
Okay.
It just looks like a little Celebi head or something.
Yes. And I love that you brought up Sulfurina, because Sulfurina in this case is the sulfuric acid, right? If you remember way back in the day when they were trying to get that sulfuric acid to make the antibiotics or whatever, and they went to that lake of like that poisonous lake, and out of the lake came like this like
Sulfurina
lady, right? Sulfurina. Go back right now to page 7.
Yeah,
she literally has the sulfuric acid, and out of there is Sulfurina, the little girl.
Yeah.
Isn't that tight? Isn't that
sick? No, wait, not the. Whoa, that's a drastic spot, bro.
Yeah.
Wait, yo, there she is.
Yep.
I'm zooming in on this.
Yeah, I remember
H2SO4, sulfuric acid.
Oh my god,
that's pretty cute.
But
she doesn't have like the skull face like she normally does.
Right. Yeah.
Or she's like,
yeah.
Oh my god, that's brilliant.
Oh man. Okay, so
lots of determination.
Yeah.
Ooh, what were you say, Eagle?
Lots of determination in this chapter from Suika, man.
Yes.
It's just...
Perfect example of that. Thank you for saying that word, determination. Page 15, bottom right panel. The whole chapter until this point, Suika has had her baby girl cutie eyes, right?
Yes.
And now bottom right panel of 15, she's got those Kohaku eyes. She's got
Yes,
the
she
determination,
does.
the piercing. I know what I'm doing.
I'm going
I'm
to
driven.
do this.
Ooh.
Yes.
Oh man, when I saw that, I was like, God damn.
Fire.
Even if a whole year of work ends in failure, over and over and over again, I'm gonna keep trying this shit.
Now when I read that line of dialogue, I was like, I don't think I have it in me to do what Suika is doing right now. But then you think about it from like a self preservation standpoint. It's like you have no choice.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So this task, as tedious and as ridiculous as it probably was for her over the course of the 7 years, you literally have nothing else to do, so you're going to do it. You know what I mean? And it doesn't take away from, you know, Suika's resolve. It doesn't take away from anything. But like initially when I was reading it, I was like, there's no way in hell, son. If I was starting a process that took a year to complete, and I got to the end of that year and it failed, I'd be like, fuck this, dude. I'd be like, fuck no, guess I'll die. Yeah, exactly. But then when you're actually in the situation, when you have the gun to your face, everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face, whatever, you know, quote or turn of phrase you want to use. When the pedal, you know, when you're in the situation, like, you just have to do it. You know what I mean? Yeah. I tried to grab I tried to grab like so many different turn of phrases like simultaneously, and which is like, I don't know what I'm trying to say, but you guys get what I mean.
Yeah. Oh man. So on page 16, right, where the scene changes to the whole planet and Senku counting. Did you, as I do as I did when I saw that number 200?
Oh, I googled it right away. I converted it instantly.
Yeah, immediately. I like typed it immediately in the calculator. I was like, okay, divide by 60, divide by 60, divide by 24, divide by.
Oh, you did way more. I just googled it. How many days is 236 million seconds? Then I took that days Google, and turned it into years. Yeah,
Google will probably do that for you. I just did the math or whatever, and I was like, when I first did it, I stopped at 24 because I was like, okay, like what is this, like 2 years, like 1 year, 2 years, and when it was like however many days it is, like it was like thousands of days. I was like
almost 3,000 days.
Yeah. My heart like just dropped. Like,
I was like, oh fuck, because this is going back into what we were saying. That we were like, what is this going to be like if it does take Suika like 10, 15 years to do this, you know what I mean? And I think we had talked about like how like, no, it would never be like that. We're not gonna throw a fucking like 10-year time skip into fucking Dr. Stone. She's gonna figure this shit out. It's gonna be, you know, dun, 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 you know what I mean? Like, you just opened the chest and found like, you know, like the perfect thing to get you through it in like the perfect amount of time is what I thought, you know, it was going to be. And I thought Riichiro Inagaki was gonna write the shit out of that. But no, he gave us a whole time skip and gave us like so much character progression to look back at inside of Suika from this moment moving forward. Like, we skipped 7 years. We're definitely seeing what that 7 years was like eventually. You know what I mean?
She failed 6 times.
Right? Like, that's wild, son.
She failed 6 or 7 times trying to have that determination to keep going, man. Like, wow.
I love Suika. Favorite character in Dr. Stone now. And this ain't recency bias, G. This is I feel like this has been building. I feel like my appreciation for Suika has been like in the background in subtle, you know, mentions throughout our review and our conversations, while, you know, Chrome is in the forefront doing some tight shit, Senku obviously doing Senku shit, but like Riichiro Inagaki has been like, okay, y'all ain't ready for what I'm about to do with Suika now that I got all this, you know what I'm saying, all this foundation, you know what I'm saying? It's just like such an amazing you know, change of spotlight, and I feel like it's so necessary because Suika, out of everyone, I feel like it, you know, Ryusui, Francois, all of these people have this amazing skill, you know what I mean, that they bring to the table that makes really big differences in every like point of conflict in the series. And then you have Suika, who is definitely useful and a great character in general, but like, you're sitting there going like, okay, half of me wants to think that she's like the plot device that's going to be used to like kidnap and create more tension, you know, things like that Riichiro kind of like makes you think is going to be the case. And obviously she has her own skills inside of reconnaissance and whatnot, but like, how far can that really go while you have these behemoth geniuses in all of these other areas? Well, now when you don't think Suika has any specific skills that measure up to a Kaseki or a Senku, now you see that this determination inside of her character to do what she needed to do, which is something that when we saw Senku do this, in the beginning of the series, we were like, okay, this is crazy. Oh my God, he counted that long. Oh my God, this kid is different. And he did all of these amazing things, but it's Senku. And then you start to think, like, if I was in that situation, no way in hell you can't even fathom it. But now we have this stone world born child literally recreating the circumstances that allowed the plot to move forward in the first arc by herself. And it's like, okay, Suika didn't have a wildly impressive skill set that she joined the crew with, but this like resolve of hers to do what the audience said we would never be able to do in the first arc. Yeah. Now a 9 to 13-year-old girl spent 7 years mastering. Right. Obviously she had no choice, but it just creates way like a crazier like new level of value to her character, because we've already had that thought, like, imagine if we were frozen, could we do this? Hell no. Right. You know what I mean? And now Suika is doing that, and it's like, holy shit.
Another very, very like just beautiful and poetic thing like in the artwork of this chapter is like we mentioned on page 15, the bottom right panel of Suika's eye, showing that that determination and that willpower, resolve.
Yeah.
Juxtaposed with like it immediately goes to that next panel of the Earth, Senku counting, like you guys said, and we don't see Suika again until the panel on page 18.
Right.
The double spread where the focus is on her eyes yet again, but it's like something really, I don't know, the artwork really conveys the relief and the weight lifted off of her in that panel.
Oh my God, especially in a direct juxtaposition.
Back to the childlike look in her eyes where she's so fucking relieved that she finally isn't alone anymore.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, and
that's beautiful. Yeah, because if you go to the bottom right of 15 and you look at that eye of Suika, and then you juxtapose that with the middle panel, you know, in the double spread of 18 and 19, it's like, yes, a completely different emotional like,
and she's
situation.
7 years older,
right? Exactly.
So it's like that really, like, man, that had to have been a hell of a moment. Just the relief in that moment you can really feel in the artwork.
Yeah, that's like a great point. Holy
and just
moly.
so emotional, like the last two, like the 22 23 double spread or whatever, like just when I read that, like I teared up, you know what I mean? Like the whole like you worked quick. It's like, oh man, like can you imagine being Suika and having Senku tell you like you fucking killed it?
Right. Exactly. Senku told you. Now here's another thing. Senku has his regular garb. He didn't die with this extra cape on.
Yeah, she put that on him.
She put that shit on him, bro.
Yep.
And he broke out. Look at this double spread.
Where he's breaking out.
Son.
Dude.
And I have the extra E=mc² cape on because, like, imagine now, I'm literally, like, we didn't see her apply. I don't remember seeing her put this cape on Senku. But, like, just think about, like, and I know that in the previous chapter we talked about how like dark or like, you know, whatever it was that she was giving voices to the statues and communicating with them or whatever, and then it kind of left that scene and went back to her working on the revival fluid. But so much time has passed, and although she's steadfast and, you know, on creating this revival fluid, she still needs these statues to keep her sane in regard to keeping the relationships that she has with the statues going in whatever dark, you know, like situation that she had going. So like imagine the scene from off panel where she looks at Senku and goes, you brought us here, like you are the shining star of this group, like I'm gonna give you a special cape because you are the reason why I'm trying this hard. You're the reason why we're all alive today. Like all of these off-screen moments throughout the 7 years where she just is in raw admiration of all of the rest of the cast constantly every day. We don't see that, you know what I mean, because it skipped time. But I feel like a tether to that area of storytelling that was off screen is this cape that she put on Senku, you know what I mean?
Now that I'm looking at it,
did she put it on him earlier?
No, I was gonna say I was gonna say it's not even just the cape, it's the whole outfit.
Oh, it's the whole outfit.
Look at under the cape, the E is her style of E. Look at his collar. Look at his collar.
Shit.
His collar is crisp. His collar is crisp and clean.
Yep.
Go to the very, very first page. Page 1, his collar's ragged. She made him a whole new kit.
Oh.
The whole thing.
Fuck, dude. Yeah, and if you look at
Sewed it
everyone
around his statue.
if you go to that color page on page 1, look at everyone's clothes are tattered and fucked up.
Yeah.
But then if you go to, wait a minute, I'm gonna see. I know that we see all of the statues again at some point in the chapter.
Oh, but it might be earlier, like
Do
before
they
the time
all
skip or
have
whatever.
new clothes on? Oh no.
I think we see them before
Just-
the time skip.
Yeah, at the bottom, at the top right of page 8, you see them all lined up, and you can't really tell, but you know that maybe Senku's clothes have changed. But either way,
Sure, Senku.
Yeah,
sure.
either,
On
actually,
the top,
actually
on top
no.
left 8.
Yeah, actually no.
8.
Yeah, top right of 8, you think so, but then you go to like 2 panels over on the same page, and his collar is fucked up, and the E is still his handwriting.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Yep.
So she made him all new clothes.
In the 7 years, this is something that she did. She's
just chilling, waiting for this nitric acid to grow underground, right?
Exactly.
So she's like, she has a lot of time to, and she's like the MVP. Like,
yes,
she doesn't have any specific like skill, right?
Yeah.
But she has the ability to hide from leopards. She has the ability to build a boat and go get that bird guano. She has the ability to find food and make shelter, and she has the ability to she's like the all-around MVP, you know what I mean? Like she can do a little of everything, a jack of all trades.
Yes.
And that's what you need in this situation. If you're a one-person team, you need to be everyone.
Absolutely. Great point. Wow.
Amazing.
Hell yeah.
Oh, this chapter.
Oh, what a chapter.
Man.
What a chapter.
I think that about wraps it up for this chapter, though. I think.
I think so.
I'm good on Dr. Stone for sure. Wow.
So with that, I think we can go ahead and get right into chapter 62 of Mashle, Mosh Burn Dead, and the Great Danger. And this fucking chapter started off so hot, man. Buddy came in and said, "Greetings." Yo, and just like, bro, like, yo, all the negative space art had like, what the fuck just happened? And then like everybody's frozen. And I'm like, I first looked at the clock and I'm like, okay, this clock has some significance. And then I noticed that it hadn't moved, and I was like, no. And then it shows everybody just like,
it's time.
And I'm like, no, this dude froze time.
The clock. The clock panel. I literally was like, I know what you're going for here. Like, I get that it's like 2 panels of a clock, but I was like, this is a manga. The clock's never gonna move. Like, I don't know what you're trying to show to me. Like, it's a clock in both panels.
Right? Like, how are we supposed to assume that like a minute has passed between the 2 panels? And the clock hand should have moved. Like, okay.
It's like, I get what you're going for, but it's like
the bird panel is really what set it in for me. Like the frozen panels of everybody, and then the bird in the air. I was like, yep.
The bird with no motion, motion lines.
No motion at all. No implied motion, a sound effect or anything like that, and obviously no motion lines like you just said. I think the clock is definitely a hindsight play. You know what I mean? Like where you're supposed to realize maybe from the moment he says I have time magic, maybe go back through the chapter and go, okay, so that explains the clock. You know what I mean? I don't think it was something that was supposed to be obvious instantly.
Right.
Which plays into the drama of the situation, obviously. It's like, why is the strongest nigga on earth not able to move right now? Oh, you know what I mean? You're like, what's going on? But yeah, time magic makes like perfect sense for that.
Then we get this cool dialogue from Innocent Zero about how he's been looking for him. And how he thought he would never find him again, and he does say "my son." I was gonna ask you guys think that's a literal true statement, or if he's just referring to him like, "Oh, I'm God, you know, you are my son." Because later in the chapter,
like it's kind of like a Whitebeard thing.
He has that dialogue later in the chapter about how like everybody is kind of cannon fodder to him, and he's like everybody is for the taking almost in a way, like
The way that I kind of
it's a good question,
I took it as literally. I took it.
I think literally.
Yeah, I think you're supposed to take it as literally, which makes me think that there might be something a little bit more to it. Like it's not an actual biological factor, and this is something that I was actually talking about.
But he is an orphan too.
He is an orphan.
It's got some credence to it.
Right, absolutely. Right. I was talking about a little bit of it in a group chat. I think someone said I made the Whitebeard comment a little bit earlier. I can't remember if it was Barikwa Mihawk or someone else from the group chat, but they said that it could be something like a Whitebeard kind of situation where he just thinks that like everyone is his children because of like the god complex that Eagle kind of like brought up initially. But like I think this is cool because one, this is a theory that I feel like we have kind of like played with since I think the first chapter of Mashle that we reviewed was the introduction of Innocent Zero as a character and a concept in the story. And I think in that review, I can't remember who it was, I want to say it was Kiko, said like, what if Innocent Zero is this motherfucker's dad?
Mm.
You know what I mean? So
That,
like,
and I think another one of us believed that like Innocent Zero was what's the character's name who has the speed magic? The
Abyss
Abyss
Razor.
Razor.
Abyss
Mhm.
Razor. We thought Innocent Zero was that because I think we hadn't gotten the name Abyss Razor yet. And
We
so
hadn't
we're
gotten the
always
name
Right,
Abyss Razor,
right.
so we
Zero,
thought,
oh,
yeah, we
shit.
thought Abyss Razor was Innocent Zero, and then we had a couple other ideas of like what Innocent
Yep.
Zero meant in that chapter. And I
Right.
think the coolest idea that we had that was thrown out was that like Innocent Zero was like the start in a sequence, and that it was
Mm.
Innocent Zero through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and whatever inside of their faction, and these were all of just people who were born without magic that were vilified for not having magic and
Yeah.
sentenced, you know, to whatever fate the status quo, you know, or the establishment decided was a threat to the status quo, and hemmed them up for that reason, just because you don't have magic. We see what happens when people don't have magic in the series. You get a motherfucker like Mash. So why would they want that to be a regular thing in their society that relies on magic power so much? You know what I mean? So we had a
Mhm.
lot of ideas on why Innocent Zero was, you know, a fugitive in the first place, you know what I mean? And
Right.
inside of that theory was maybe he's Mash's dad, and he also doesn't have, you know, magic, you know what I mean? We
Right.
said a lot of things like that.
He clearly does.
He clearly has
Yeah.
magic, so that area of
Pulls
the
out
theory
the
is
time
gone.
stop.
But the time stop to have the Julius be antagonistic is like a really big deal, because I feel like this is rare for mangaka because it's such an overpowered ability. I can't
Sure.
remember
Well,
too many
Dio.
times. You have Dio, and then you have Esteth
Yeah.
from Akame got kill as well. Those are like
Oh,
the
she was
two.
hot?
Well, she could freeze things,
Oh,
but
and
it
freeze.
extended
Okay.
to time in her ultimate,
Gotcha,
you know,
gotcha.
application of it. You know what I mean? But yes,
I,
you don't see this too often in an antagonistic force.
Because it's so powerful.
I'm
yeah.
Well, and what's
super excited on
interesting-
how Komoto plays with it. Yeah, go ahead, Eagle.
What's interesting to me about it, especially, is the fact that he mentioned specifically that it's not just time magic, but
Mhm.
darkness magic with the power to stop time.
Oh,
Yeah,
so,
sure,
like,
sure.
fucking
So we're gonna
gross.
see some awesome applications of darkness magic and shit here too. But
Yo.
Come on,
my
man.
my man Wahlberg steps in like,
Hold on.
yeah, Meru. But hold on, before we go into the Wahlberg part, he starts to say, "Once I've absorbed you, I'll become."
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So this is like the main like conversation point that I feel like this chapter brings up. Obviously, I'm your dad. That's a big thing.
Right.
But like the
Now let me
main
take
thing
you
is, yeah, like the main point, the main talking points that I specifically had going into this conversation was like, okay, he said, I need to absorb you to be complete. We could talk about that for a moment, but the other thing, and actually, let's just talk about that. Let's just talk about
Yeah.
that. So,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
what do you guys think that means?
Right.
I don't know.
Ah.
It almost lends to. I don't know. Like,
Right. Now, I feel like it stems from the concept inside of Mashle that you can siphon magic power from people.
Right.
And
right.
I was actually talking about this in a group chat a little bit earlier today before we started the review. And I try not to talk about the
Mhm.
manga before we, you know, go into our discussion of it for the review. But Mashle was just the one where I was just like, fuck it, I'm going to talk about this. Now, as far as you know, the siphoning of magic power that we've seen with Abel's character, and that has
Mhm.
been talked about outside of Abel's character a couple times, even too offhandedly, it makes me think, and someone actually brought it up in the group chat, they said maybe Mash is just supposed to be a vessel for some reason. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And we've actually
Right.
played with, you know, this idea that I'm about to present. We played with this inside of Mashle too, inside of Black Clover as well,
Oh,
inside of
sure.
our reviews. Now, the way that I'm going to link these two together, hold on, let me see if I can do this. Okay, so if they do have a trusted method to take magic power away from people to the point where you could put it in a vial and drink it and get a desired effect, then obviously we know that there's been tons of trial and error in regard to this situation or that concept in the story that we haven't seen yet. Now,
Right.
as far as what that could look like, I think I remember a time in our Black Clover reviews where I threw out an idea that
that Asta
Spade
was like an experimental
Exactly.
perfect vessel for
for Devil Union, right? So
Yep.
the
Oh,
idea
wow.
inside of the Black Clover. Now, I think you were there. I think you were there for this.
Oh, I'm
right?
sure I was there.
Yeah. So like, I think what I said was that okay, Spade in the beginning of the Spade arc of Black
Mhm.
Clover, these Spade motherfuckers were literally taking mana from people to power some giant ship or whatever. I think I remember it was a giant building or something.
Like a walker at
Yes,
right.
they were.
Yeah,
Like a mech,
yeah, exactly, something like that. So like we know that this concept exists inside of Black Clover. So how far fetched would it really be if these Spade motherfuckers had Asta as an infant and went like, let's just remove all of the magic power from, you know, all of the mana from this kid, so that the devil doesn't have any mana to compete with inside of the possession. Right.
Sure.
That was the idea, was that like, how perfect of a devil vessel would it be if there was no mana there that they had to like fight against, you know, and you could just load the devil into Asta and then he's a perfect host because there's no mana there. Now inside of MASH, like the way that I was thinking about it was like, okay, we know that there's a siphon, you know, mechanic inside of Mashle. So if this Innocent Zero faction is sitting here going, okay, let's increase our own power by stealing the mana of others, which we've already seen applications of inside of the Abel arc. Well, what does that look like at the root inside of potentially this kid was born with magic potential? Maybe there's a difference between taking someone's magic once they've matured and taking someone's entire magic potential at birth. Right. And the idea that I kind of had was, if you do it at birth, maybe you're stealing like a more potent form of this magic and it increases your power exponentially more than it would if you took it from an adult or someone like, you know, or whatever. Now if that is the case and they take all of Mash's magic potential from him as a child, there is a divine aspect to this magic. You know, it comes from a higher place. We see that inside of the names of, you know, triple liner spells and master canes. We have lore that kind of suggests that this is a higher power blessing, right? And if that's the case, if you rob an infant of their entire divine potential, maybe that creates a situation similar to heavenly restriction inside of Jujutsu Kaisen, where you are born without the primary energy source in the series. So to supplement that, you get a Toji body, you get a Maki body, you know what I mean? So if we are playing with that idea, that could play into why MASH is so physically overpowering beyond what is obviously expected from people who just work out a lot. Obviously the physical feats that we've seen are supernatural as far as what's, you know, based in, you know, or rooted in reality.
Right.
You know, like
exactly, like Saitama, and like I do 100 push-ups a day, 100 sit-ups a day, and I run 10 kilometers every day. It's like, okay, that's not enough.
You're going to be in great shape, but you're not going to be able to punch a planet in half, especially not like, you know, deal with escape velocity and return velocity the way that Saitama does. You know what I mean? So, so like that, you know, working out isn't, you're going to feel great. You're going to be in top physical form, but you're not going to be superhuman just from working out. You know what I mean? So it's either a situation where the reason why MASH is as powerful as he is after working out is because of a divine intervention inside of something similar to what I'm talking about, or you just have to suspend disbelief for the sake of a fictional comic book. And it's always, you know, interesting to see how the author or the creator is going to play with that expectation. It's like, am I just going to throw everything to it's fiction and boom, that's all you get, and that's why I'm able to do everything that I'm doing? Or am I going to add a level of nuance to it, you know, the way that we see Gege Akutami do it inside of, you know, Heavenly Restriction? And I think it would be a really cool fucking angle if we got some depth inside of the world of Mashle in regard to, hey, you took all of the potential that this kid had, now you just created a monster physically that counters everything you're trying to do because you were trying to be so underhanded about your power you know, achievement or your power accumulation.
Oh, go for it, Eagle. I think you're trying to.
I was just gonna say another cool idea to play with in this aspect would be like, what if, like, I mean, we've seen in this universe, I feel that the mages are much less physically inclined in as opposed to like a universe even like Black Clover, where some of the characters have like punching spells, whatever, like physically augmenting spells. In this story, even more so, like things are much less physical. So the fact that Mosh is that physically inclined is like overwhelming to people in a way that they've never seen before. So I was thinking either maybe this dude like abandoned him in hopes that he would get to that point and now like wants to absorb his physical, you know, physical capabilities so he can be that overwhelming, or like we've always looked at it as a joke and something that Mosh just says, but what if he really does have like muscle augmentation magic?
Yeah, I
Sure,
think
sure.
Muscle magic.
Woo!
And he's
Right.
for real like beastly in that sense, and like that is what this dude wants, is Mosh's muscle
Yeah.
magic.
Well,
Sure.
remember when I don't know if you were here for this conversation exactly. I think the last weekly Shonen Jump review you were here for was the episode that Dr. Stone joined the roster.
Yeah, I think so.
I think that was the last time you were here. But we've played with this idea. Remember inside of the chapter where Rain fought Margaret and he went into the Black Partisan, and we found out about
Yeah.
Master Canes and how they're like kind of based on Olympic gods to a certain degree. Obviously, we have a little bit more, credence
Yep.
for that inside of this chapter. But like
Well-
Hercules is a thing inside of that. You know what I mean?
Right,
And we had a
right.
discussion. I don't know if you were there for it or not, where if Rain is going to get an avatar like Ares, or a representation like Ares, and then obviously Wahlberg has Uranus, and Innocent Zero has Kronos. You know what I mean? Like that's all inside of Greek pantheon. You know what I mean? So if that is a thing, then like Hercules as an avatar for MASH still makes sense. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and
right.
Hercules as someone who is not directly a god, but someone who shares the powers of a god, being the spawn of one, but also like half human. Like obviously you don't have to take it as literal as the Greek lore inside of their pantheon, but you could play
Yeah.
with that in a way to where you could twist it and say MASH is magical in this sense that is still wildly different from the magic that we've seen so far, because it's not a Zeus lightning bolt, it's not a Poseidon tsunami, it's
Yeah.
literally just raw strength, more so than any person should normally have, because that's what Hercules gets from being the son of Zeus and Hera. You know what I mean? So,
Right.
or Zeus and whoever the fuck human he
Yeah,
smashed
yeah,
to get,
yeah,
to get,
right.
to get Hercules. Or
Well, and I
whatever.
think they're kind of keeping it a little loose with the pantheons, at least, because like here at the end of this chapter we have Uranus, god of sky, which is a Roman god, basically
Right.
the Roman version of
the
Zeus.
Roman equivalent, right?
Right.
And then Kronos, who is actually a Titan within the Greek mythology. So
Right.
it's like,
But when it's Greek and Roman, it's not that much
It's
of a,
basically
of
the
a
same.
discrepancy.
Yeah, it's very
right,
similar,
exactly.
very
It's
similar.
literally
Basically.
just like a retranslation
yeah.
for
Yeah.
a similar area of the world. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I feel like Roman and Greek interchangeably are
Yeah.
the same pantheon. So if
Yeah.
we see Uranus and Kronos, it's not a big deal. But now if we saw like fucking Agni or like a Hindu god,
I
or
would
like a
think that,
fucking like, I would think all types of shit. We saw literally any other pantheon besides Roman and Greek, we would have a way different conversation.
Bring
on our
out
hands on
Odin,
that.
man. Let's go.
Yeah.
Bring out Odin
Yeah.
and Thor. Let's go.
Right.
So
right.
another thing I was thinking with this absorption thing, right? Like
Yes.
once I've absorbed you, I'll be complete.
Yeah.
In terms of like that research, I think you were talking about Nox. You know what I mean? Like
mhm.
you don't just go from there's magic to all of a sudden I can just absorb magic energy from people.
Right.
There had to have been, and we may never get this exposition or flashback, but there was some research. You know what I mean? Some quote unquote scientific or magical research that led to the point where people could extract magical energy from people.
Right.
What if in that research they discovered how to extract physical strength from someone, right? So what if once I've absorbed you is once I've done this kind of similar technique to the magic absorption, but I'm literally extracting an essence, a juice from you that I can drink, and boom, now I have your physical strength and capabilities and
Holy
agilities,
moly.
right?
I didn't even think about the possibility that like whatever scientific we can assume like technique or application that they use to steal people's mana and turn it into a beaker of liquid that you can drink and whatever. I never even thought about the idea that like you could turn that into
Do that on MASH.
Do that on MASH in any kind of
Right.
capacity. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I think that is a crazy idea, and I think that it makes. I feel like if that was introduced in the world of MASH, I feel like it would ground it, in a way that like made it feel a lot better inside of conflicts, because not that things feel bad inside of conflicts inside of MASH or anything like that, but more nuance I feel like is never a bad thing. You know what I mean? So if you're going to go into like depth levels that rely on scientific, application of things when dealing with magic, then I feel like that is something that at least they kind of tried to do that. They kind of tried to do that in Black Clover, right? You know what I mean? But like in a series like MASH, where I feel like all of the except for the diversity of magic in general,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like MASH does everything better than Black Clover from a conceptual standpoint. The only
Sure.
thing that I feel like Black Clover really beats MASH in is just like how many different kinds of magic we see, and the ways that they interact together and the way that they interact dependently is something that I feel like is special for Tabata, that he does, that really is like his, magic fiction namesake, is the
Sure.
diversity of his magic application. So besides that, everything else that we've seen in Black Clover that has been kind of replicated in MASH, I feel like has been executed better. Examples are like Lance, you know what I mean, and the Gauche comparison. Another
Sure.
example would be just the depth of the energy system and how better it feels as a system technically, than Black Clover. But as far as the situation with science and magic
Sure.
working together, I feel like that's kind of played with inside of Black Clover, and now that it's kind of, at least inside of our analysis, kind of feeling like it's going to go that direction, I am more than excited for what Komoto is going to do with this area of the concept, considering how much better he's executed other,
Sure.
cool Black Clover concepts, in the past. So I have no idea, but I'm here for it regardless, is basically what I'm saying.
Right.
Like, I'm excited
yeah,
to see how he
besides-
plays with the idea.
Right. Besides like the extracting the essence juice or whatever, you know what I mean? It's hard for me to imagine what he is talking about when he says once I've absorbed you. You know what I mean? Like, what does that mean?
Eagle was
You know what I
talking
mean?
about felt really good. It's like, okay, you've grown up with no magic the whole time, and now you're this physical behemoth that shits on literally anyone underneath you with no magic. What if I had that physical strength and the magic I wield at the same time?
Right, but how do you get it?
But how do you get it? Right, exactly.
Right.
Oh, okay, I see what you mean. So
Yeah.
as far as our understanding
growing
of
mash,
how it's
growing
going to,
mash is one thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
growing mash is one thing, and I totally agree that like taking his magic and then like the heavenly restriction kind of thing, or like because you have no magic, like your physical aspect has room to grow in your body, right? More than most people.
Right.
Growing mash is one thing, but how do you extract his strength? How do you absorb him?
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
Exactly
Like that's a totally
what you
different
mean
thing.
now. Yeah, for sure. That's a big question, and I felt like it was the biggest. Like, there was a lot of crazy shit that we got this chapter, but I feel like the biggest talking point is I'm going to absorb you. It's like, okay, so like, are you Cell? Do you have a fucking giant tail with a fucking syringe at the end of it under your cloak? Like, what do you mean, buddy? You know what I mean? So I feel like that is, but I mean, like, apart from that, like, this situation with Wahlberg, one, we knew Wahlberg had more lines. We knew Wahlberg was hiding more lines. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I feel like the conversation that we had was, he's either going to have more lines or he's going to be this cold with one line. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, what would be cooler? You know what I mean? And obviously, we see what's
either.
going on here. Obviously,
I like
works,
this.
either way works fine. You know what I mean? But
busted out that triple line.
Wait a
What's
minute.
up?
But then also Innocent Zero shows some hidden lines as well, and we never saw his original lines, and we're only seeing two lines that are showing up right now. Yeah,
I literally wanted to comment on that because if you go through this whole chapter, right, you see a lot of his face, a lot of Innocent Zero's face, but you don't see his whole face, and there's one place on his face that I think you never see, and that is between his left eye and his left ear. Right, you see his almost his whole right side of his face on say page 13, and page 14 when he's looking through his fingers. You know what I mean? Like, you see a lot of his right side of his face, but you never see that between the eye and the ear on the left side.
Oh no! So wait, that means that Wahlberg showed his hand, and he's got 3 lines. Innocent Zero shows 2 lines, and he's gonna fight with 2 lines against Wahlberg and probably be on the back foot until he reveals the left side of his face, and it's 4 lines, and then he kills Wahlberg.
Well, I mean, if what Nick is talking about is true, then he would just have the one permanent, like the one that he was always showing.
Yeah, that's his permanent
here,
one line.
And then the other 2 over here.
Sure. But if it's a 3 line versus 3 line, then obviously that, we have a little bit less certainty there as far as who's going to win, because it's 3 lines versus 3 lines. Obviously, if we're following the, Harry Potter, Naruto, Orochimaru versus Hiruzen. If we're following like that kind of formula, then we think Wahlberg has to lose here. And if Wahlberg loses here in front of everyone, then that's a whole spectacle. Obviously Innocent Zero has more has more stock as a villain because he killed, the Sarutobi of the story, you know what I mean?
Sure.
So it creates that situation. But like, if he really does just have 3 lines and it's these 2 on the left, and then the one that's been hidden the whole time that's actually visible, a part of him if you just see under the hood, then it's 3v3, and then it's high diff, whatever diff, and then the dude wins. But as far as drama goes, you show fucking Wahlberg with the 3 lines, you show fucking Innocent Zero with the 2. He flexes on Wahlberg with 2 lines while Wahlberg has 3. Then Wahlberg goes into his ultimate and shifts the tide back on Innocent Zero, and then the dramatic reveal of the 4th line as he kills Wahlberg, I feel like dramatically is a much more lit situation. But obviously this is just entirely speculation.
Right.
But I think that a 3v3 clash and then Wahlberg losing still is fine. You know what I mean? Because you have to establish, out with the old, in with the new kind of like situation. Right. But like, just initially, my thoughts on this chapter was the situation that I just described, hypothetically. And I just think that would be so lit.
yeah. No, it'd be
Whoops,
crazy.
I have 4 lines, but then you think about like what that means for the story if motherfuckers are constantly going to be one-upping lines. You know what I mean? Like it creates that situation, so maybe you don't want that.
On this top panel of page 17, it almost looks like Wahlberg has like 9 lines.
Yeah.
Like, I thought he was about to go crazy. I was like, oh shit. And then it was just the 3, and I'm like, okay, that makes a little more sense. I thought
it was like
really
blood squirting out or something.
Something, because that shit was wild. But then we get Innocent Zero saying it's been decades since we last crossed wands, which means he's also very old.
Yes, right. But he's trying to be that perfect human who's like, ageless and strong and super powerful. So like, he must have found some way to extract either through that drinking of essence or some other method, magic, maybe magic,
now,
to make himself younger.
Here's another thing is the motivations that we get from Innocent Zero after all of this time feel very shallow to me. You know what I mean? Considering like, now look at literally every other conflict that we've had. Once we get down to like brass taxes and we find out who this character is, there's like a lot of really deep and nuanced storytelling related to them. Look at Carpaccio. Look at like literally everybody. They get this amazingly profound explanation of their motivations and why they are the way that they are. And then Innocent Zero, this character that's built up for so long, finally tells us what he wants. And it's like, I just want to be the perfect your cell. You know what I mean? Like, really? Like, I'm not buying it. I think that there's a lot more to this character. And I know that Komoto can write antagonistic motivations better than this. You know what I mean? So I'm like excited to see like what the future of Innocent Zero is. But this initial conversation, like on my first read through, I was like, really? That's it, fam? That's your whole thing? You know what I mean? But now I'm like, nah. Komoto got something else cooking for Innocent Zero. I know it.
Could be.
I'm positive.
Yeah. Definitely could be.
Yeah.
And I mean, the last thing really is just it's super fucking hype. We see the end. Obviously, Wahlberg has Uranus, God of Sky, contract, and Innocent Zero has his Chronos God.
Look at their staves, though. Look at the design of their staves.
Staves.
Yes, fire.
Is that the plural of staff?
Yeah.
Really?
Stabs.
I mean, I think you want to know what? You want to call them wands, but they transform. I mean, at least for Innocent Zero, it turns into more of a staff length wand.
I would almost call it a scepter.
Yeah, scepter, stave, staff. I don't know the direct difference. Like if you were going to look up like the delineations for
I've never heard the word stave used, so it took me aback. I was
stave,
like,
stave. I don't think is a plural. I think stave is like actually just a term.
Weird.
Well, anyway, keep going with what.
Anyway, a vertical wooden post or plank in a building or other structure. So another term another term for staff, right? And I just said the word stave because I've seen that in like fiction before, and like that's just whatever. But yeah, so like in the design of their wands, staves, staff, scepters, okay. I think that there is storytelling here to some degree, and in a way that we just aren't seeing. I think that the design of these wands play into the god that they're channeling or some
Yeah.
other kind of
Oh, yeah.
lore to some degree.
I mean, the head of the Chrono staff is a big
is
clock,
literally a
so-
clock.
Right,
Yeah, absolutely.
right.
But the reason why I'm saying this is because it's obvious for Kronos. It's not as obvious for Uranus
For
as
Uranus,
far as
yeah,
like,
yeah.
what
Yeah.
the design is telling us.
Like,
So
what
I
are
was
these
just saying-
nails?
Yeah.
What is this, like, snowflake looking thing at the center almost?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. Yeah, I have no idea. Now, if Uranus is god of the sky, so we can include that anything in the sky is a part of that arsenal. So maybe the nucleus of this wand is the sun.
Oh, yeah.
oh,
Mhm.
and then there's the staff itself. The
Is
body
on
of it
fire.
almost looks like clouds almost.
Oh,
Oh.
clouds. Yeah, there you go.
And
there
what
you
if, what
go.
if those arrows are like the cardinal directions?
Hey, let's go! It's a compass
Oh.
rose, baby!
Yeah. Maybe.
Let's
maybe.
go! I love that.
Oh.
Yes, sir. But see, like
Oh, yeah.
that's just like the last point that I had, because it's like
Yeah.
it's like when you think about, you know, this concept of channeling, you know, gods, you know what I mean? Like, we've seen it before. Like, the immediate, you know, example I can think of is Chariok inside of the God of High School. You know what I mean? But like, inside of the aesthetic of those abilities, you can always see something that lends itself to the actual concept. You know what I mean? And
Mhm.
inside of the staff, stave, scepter of the Uranus god of sky for Wahlberg, I was just wondering what you know, inspired that design wise.
Yeah,
from
what
the
that
lore.
aesthetic
Yeah.
tied to
It's tight.
Exactly.
symbolically, yeah.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Well, shit, I think that about does it for this chapter.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
What a convo.
So with that, I think we can go ahead and get right into chapter 312 of My Hero Academia, Hired Gun.
Ooh.
In this chapter,
This chapter is fire. I love everything about Lady Nagant.
Yeah.
And we can talk about like exactly, you know, her like as we go through. But the one point that I wanted to make is that I think it's so funny how Snipe is in this like this reality show confessional, this
Mhm.
confession room, you know, like that you see in like, you know, Real World Road Rules, where he's like
Mhm.
talking
yo,
about
she's way colder than I am.
yeah, and it's crazy to me that he would, you know, just willingly give this, you know, and I understand that there's more to being a hero than just how capable your quirk is. You know what I mean? So like, but when I'm first reading this chapter, I'm like, bro, why are you telling this to the world? Like, doesn't like, and maybe it's just because I've been watching The Boys recently, and like
Sure.
The Boys is like, you know,
Oh.
a raw deconstruction of like superhero storytelling and showing you that like, you know, the superheroes in the limelight that you've been trusting with your lives this whole time are really just in it for the money and publicity and, you know, and things like that. So it made me like, when I'm seeing this scene for the first time, I'm like, why are you telling people this, bro? Like, don't you want to be the #1 sniper hero? Like, don't you want to be the gun guy? Why are you telling people there's a better gunman than you that exists, period? Like, you should be, I'm the best sniper, blah, you know what I mean? Like, you're just being so you know, transparent about this, you know what I mean?
Well,
like on live television.
I will say that for the record, like, he is on a show called Heroes to Watch. We asked 100 heroes,
Yeah.
100 current heroes.
That's right.
He was asked.
That's right.
Snipe was asked, who do you know, watch? Who do you
Mhm.
hype? And
Yeah.
he hyped her, right?
Right.
So like, I think it makes total sense why he's hyping
Right.
her. It's the whole point of the show. But
Right.
it's super weird to say, here's exactly how my ability works. I can
Yes.
do within 600 meters. I can do X, Y, and
Yes.
Z, and it's probably not going to hit you very hard if you're
Right.
a villain. I mean,
Right.
take that into consideration. She does X, Y, and Z, and this, and 1, 2, 3, and it's like,
Yeah.
why are you
Yeah.
selling, you know, her
Yeah.
ability to the
Right,
whole world?
like you're
right
literally
now?
saying everything you do and then
Mhm.
telling the world that Lady Nagant does everything you do 100 times better. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? So like inside of the situation, if I am like equating it to The Boys, like
Mhm.
I'm sitting here going, okay, if you are going to talk someone up because that's why you're on the show, why wouldn't you talk up someone that has a quirk similar to yours but is worse? You know what I mean?
Sure,
Like, why
sure.
wouldn't you talk up the next best sniper to you and not the
Mm.
actual best sniper in the world who also is a fugitive or a prisoner, like a felon?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, why are we?
They probably weren't back then. you
Oh,
know?
Yeah, I think at that point.
Okay, sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. Yeah, that's a good
But
point.
we start
But
off
yeah.
with this. No, go ahead.
No,
finish
yeah,
it. Sorry.
go ahead. Take us through the chapter. I just wanted to make that point because it was just like
Sure.
so jarring to me at first. But,
Oh, sure.
but yeah, go ahead, Eagle.
But it's just cool how we start off with these Hawks panels, these flashback
Mhm.
Hawks panels, telling Deku like, "Yo, if this is who comes after you, you better just fucking run, because she's nasty as fuck." And then
Right.
it kind of cool moves into this like Deku surmising based on what's going on. Like, yes, it is her. And then we finally get the reveal panel. Boom, a former hero employed by the Safety Commission. Lady Nagant,
Mhm.
which I found to be like a really, really awesome name because obviously it's a callback to the very iconic Russian sniper from the World War II era, the
That's right.
Mosin Nagant.
That's right. But see, another thing though, Eagle, is that like he said that it's not just a former hero employed by the Safety Commission, she's actually a former senior colleague of mine, is what he says.
Yep.
Maybe
Yeah.
like in that like secret clandestine
Oh,
CIA faction. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, yo.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
yeah,
that's-
because she doesn't have a I'm about to capture you quirk.
Right,
She's got a
Right.
I'm about to fucking blow your head off.
right, exactly.
Yeah.
This
So
is a covert Japanese government operation,
right,
a black op
yeah,
operation,
like a
where we're
wet
just
works, like a
taking
wet
the
works
fuck out.
team. Right,
Yeah.
exactly. You know what I mean? Similar to what Hawks was a part of in
Yeah.
you know, in his upbringing. So I think that's what he's saying here, is that like she was a part of that same program as me, and she was like my senpai in that
Wow.
in that you know, curriculum or whatever. And then
Right.
now she's a felon for whatever reason, and
Right,
she was in
right.
Tartarus, and now she's broken out. But this bitch is cold. She was tight. Get away from her. Do not fuck with her. Like, I have experience with Lady Nagant, and she's too much even for you with One for All. You know what I mean? So like that
Mhm.
was a really cool, you know, start to the chapter. Yeah.
Right. Damn.
And then we just get Deku bouncing here. He tries to grab his phone and like skirt out, and we get her wrapping a bullet around the building, and it like hits him with such force that he like is trying to stop it. It's like forcing him back.
Yes.
Like
Yes.
this quirk of hers, I really like a lot, man. And these
Mhm.
this double page spread panel of where he's getting like whipped back
Around the
across
corner. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then he even makes the comment like a howitzer shot is nothing
It's
compared to
nothing.
this. Bakugo's ultimate does not compare to this.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
gross. That's fucking
Mhm.
gross. And another thing that I wanted to comment on that Eagle just made me think of is that hold on, I think it was in the nope, I lost it. Keep going, you guys. Sorry. I had something cool to say. I'll try to remember it, but
Sure,
Well,
sure.
I mean,
just keep going.
from that point in the chapter, we go into that interview you had mentioned earlier with what's his name, Snipe,
Right.
and he talks about all that. And
I wanted to talk a little bit about that that interview a little bit more, right? Because
Right.
after the interview, say on page 10, right?
it's
Deku has now intercepted one of the bullets or whatever, and he's kind
Mm-hmm.
of falling. And Deku thinks even Snipe Sensei is
Yeah.
he
jealous of her
remembered back
accuracy.
to that interview.
Right.
Because he literally saw that on
He
TV.
literally
You know
saw
he
the
would.
interview.
You
You
know he
know
would literally
Deku
he would
would have
eat
seen
that
that.
program
Yes,
up. He would be
absolutely.
Yep.
watching that marathon all day, trying to
24/7.
see
Right.
what 100 heroes think of up
Exactly.
and coming heroes. You know what I mean? Like, of course he watched that. I think that's tight as hell.
That is very tight. I remembered what I was going to say inside of the Snipe confession in talking about how Lady Nagant's quirk works. This is actually something that Nick commented on last chapter about her hair fibers or whatever. I think you were the one that said,
Yeah,
no,
like
I look
Ikago.
yeah, I took a little bit, you know, longer to look at the panel, and it looks like the bullet is made of her hair. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? I think is what you said last week.
Mhm,
So I wanted to give you your chips for that, because that was a
Oh.
fucking incredible spot, dude. Because I don't
Yeah.
know who else, maybe an Aniki, you know, or something,
Sure.
or maybe like a vocal pineapple called something like
Mhm.
that out.
Mhm.
But like apart from that, I was so surprised that ended up being like confirmed in this chapter, because
Yeah.
when you brought that up in our last review, I was like, oh my god, I didn't even come close to that line
Sure,
of
sure.
thinking, you know, after reading
Mhm.
the chapter. So like that's so impressive to me. I just had to
The
yeah.
thing I did not pick up last chapter,
Yeah.
I just didn't like fully understand the panel, right? But when you see her like using her rifle,
Yeah.
it's coming out of her elbow. I did not get that, right? Like she literally takes her arm and pulls her forearm back to make a corner with her elbow, and the gun comes out of her elbow. So it's hard to see in the beginning. It's really easy to see last chapter. But for
Oh.
example, go to page 9.
Yeah.
Page 9 in that video, and it's literally coming out of her elbow. Her hand is back by her neck. You know what I
Oh
mean?
yeah, it's like this.
Yeah. It's like she's pointing with her elbow, and the gun
you
comes
think
out of
it's
her
like
elbow.
This,
Yeah,
but it's like that. Oh no,
Yep.
I didn't even notice that. Good shit.
Yeah. Just super tight. Or for example, when she's talking to Overhaul on page
Yeah.
12.
Yeah.
12. You kind of see like the energy
Yes.
around her arm as she's like dispelling the ability or whatever.
Right.
She like clicks it back into place, and the gun kind of
Yep.
disappears or whatever.
Yep.
I think it's just really tight.
That
Like,
is
it's very
great.
cool.
A great way to show the ability.
Mhm,
Absolutely.
mhm.
Fire.
Oh yeah, and on page 11, you actually
11.
see it like ka-chunk back
shooting
into
back
her
into
shit.
her arm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and you
yeah.
could see the folds. Like you could see,
Yes.
you know, like now that you've mentioned that, every single time she's using this gun, you can see where the arm folds to create the elbow muzzle. You know what I mean?
But last chapter, when you first see it for the first time, I kind of assumed that the top of her forearm was like part of the gun, right? Like
gun,
part of like maybe the hilt or whatever. What's it called?
The butt,
the stock, and the button. So yeah.
Wow.
Very good.
That is an incredible spot, Nick. I wonder, let us know in the comments section if you noticed that before or if you learned that from this conversation. Those are things that I want to see. But wow, dude. She can curve the okay, so this is the tightest part, is that it works like epoxy. So you can form it in whatever way you want. And now when Snipe says in the confessional, when she twists those two-tone hairs together like epoxy putty, they harden up as strong as any ammo out there. So we know that it has the durability of a bullet and then some, but also it says everything from curving rounds to hollow points, I reckon. And we see that in application when these bullets curve around, you know, certain points in space, you know what I mean? So that's confirmed. But like the fact that you can form your bullet in your hand in a way that's going to give a, you know, desired trajectory based on how you formed it is not just, okay, you have a broken quirk. It's you have an understanding of physics the way Momo does, the way Yao Yorzu does. You know what I mean? You understand nature to the point where you're like, okay, if I twist it in this way, I can create a curvature in its trajectory. How much trial and error in her quirk training, you know, was dedicated to how I can, you know, create different bullets, you know what I mean? And if that's an area of her specific quirk training, then this is a really serious problem, because it's like, if this was cultivated in a program of some kind, the way that we see class 1A, 1B and whatnot, like train their quirks, you know what I mean? Then it's like, dude, the proficiency levels of this bullet, you know, forming, you know what I mean, is gonna be so dangerous, you know what I mean? Because it's like, you've had your whole life to find out how to do this. This isn't just like you can shoot any kind of bullet out of your fucking arm. It's you meticulously, you know, and tediously worked at this with trial and error. That's a big deal.
To the point where you're so good at it, you can literally pull hair off your head and go zip, zip, zip,
in a moment.
In a moment, slot it into your gun, and you boom, have a shot that's going to hit them from 3 kilometers away.
With whatever effect you've twisted into your bullet. You know what I mean? Like, that's gross.
It's super gross.
and it makes, you know, after everything we learn about her in the moment and through these flashbacks with Snipe and in her confrontation with Deku, it reinforces that point that Hawks had in the beginning, because he's like, look, man, you got one for all. You've got the advantage, period. Multiple quirks is the advantage. Regardless of what your quirk is and how tight it is and how much you've honed it, this motherfucker has 6 of them. You're gonna be good. But if you run into Lady Nagant, one quirk fucks your whole situation up when you have like the drastic advantage of 6 versus 1. But this one quirk is your hard counter in this situation. Like, that's such an incredible buildup for an antagonistic force. It's not even funny. And then to actually like get that reinforced by another pro hero saying, oh yeah, this bitch is cold. You know what I mean? It's like the tension spiked so ridiculously as the confrontation continued. Because as the confrontation continues, you see everything in application in real time that they were warning us about in Hawks' dialogue and Snipe's dialogue in both flashbacks. So it's like, okay, this is what we warned you for, and now you're directly experiencing it, and Deku's like, this is different, you know what I mean? And it's like just the perfect buildup for Lady Nagant, in my opinion.
Whew. So she's talking to one for or all for one, right? Like, and he's giving her a mission. Like, I love this conversation between these two for sure.
What were you gonna say though, Eagle?
I was just saying it's crazy that the second bullet, he seems to like, he's catching the first bullet like this, and as he's flying back, he like blocks the second one like that, and it breaks his armor. I just thought that was a cool
Where are you seeing that?
illustrative.
What page?
That's on page 10.
Oh, 10.
You can see him floating upside down,
Oh,
holding his arm
yeah.
like this
Oh yeah,
in
yeah.
that spot. And then she
Yeah.
says, blocking 2 of my shots. We never see her shoot the second shot, I don't think. Oh, no, we
Right.
do.
The first shot was the
that
one
curved
that
around.
I thought that he dodged. No, because at the beginning of the chapter it shows that she shot his phone, and that was from the last chapter. Then the second
Yep.
time, you know, she's like, you moved. So now I'm going to shoot you again. Boom, and then shoots the next shot on the page, and then Deku dodges it, and you see his stream of full cowling dodge the shot or take it. I don't think we actually see him take this specific shot, but she shoots again after the dedicated Lady Nagant panel on page 3. So she has her arm up, you moved, and then the next panel is another bullet coming out of the muzzle. And then you see Deku dodging to jump onto the buildings, and maybe he took that shot or he dodged it. We can assume he blocked it, you know what I mean? Because her aim is so true, and she literally says, you took 2 of my shots, but she's only shot 3 up until this point. And that's the one that disabled the phone, the one at the beginning of page 4, and then the one that curved around that he compared to the howitzer.
No. Because after on 6-7, after he blocks the curve shot, she shoots.
Yeah,
she shoots on the bottom.
Again.
Yeah. So I think Eagle's right that he does block that one on the top of 10.
That's right. You're completely right, Eagle. Good shit.
That's wild.
Yeah. No, it's super wild.
Oh, but yeah, this conversation with All For One, right?
Yeah.
This is cool.
To like, one, giving her a mission, and she's like, why? And then he says like, it's so interesting where he says, you killed a hero. You must, and he doesn't say must, he just says like he knows it to be true, so he just says it, right? You seek the downfall of hero society. And then here's like a guy who's in your way. Here's a boy who's standing in your way. And I love when she says like, another one clinging to those phony hopes, huh?
Yeah.
Like, damn, I need her backstory so bad.
Absolutely. But here's another difference between Nagant and the rest of the people that have been broken out. Everyone that's been broken out by All Might, at least so far, that we've gotten actual words about how they feel about the situation, has looked at All For One as like their savior. I will follow you to the ends of the earth just because you got me out of this situation. But Nagant is like, okay, I'm free, so I'm going to go bounce. Thanks, bro. And then All For One's like, no, I have another mission for you. And she's like, really? I have to do more than just break out and be me. You know what I mean? And she's less, you know, looking at him as like a messiah or like something to be worshipped, whereas everyone else is like the boss. Look at Kisaki. I gotta get back to the boss. The boss is gonna have something for me. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Look at fucking Jailbreaker, you know, muscular. Yeah. Like, I'm out, I'm ready to, whatever my motivations were, don't matter. I'm out and free and I can just whatever. But now Lady Nagant is like, okay, I'm out and maybe I have a little bit more agency as like an individual character to like, you know, see my own goals like come to fruition. And now this motherfucker is stopping me from that because he wants me to do homework for him. And it's like, I don't look at this guy the same way Kisaki and, you know, everyone else that's been freed looks at him. I just want to get back to what the fuck I was doing before I was locked up. And now this dude's got shit for me to do. Like, I'm mad about, like, I don't like All For One. Everyone else is like, All For One is everything. He got me. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? But she does not look at him like a god. And like, that's really that's a really cool angle for me. And then doubling down on that with this line of rebellious dialogue as he's coming to her with the blessing of, I broke you out of here, you're my, you know, henchman, you got to go do this thing for me because I did this for you. Anyone else would have been like, you got it, Pops, you got me out of here, what do you need me to do? I'm out to go do it. You know what I mean? Where she's like, she needs to enter actual contractual obligation to help All For One. And I think that is just a really cool, you know, angle to give Lady Nagant here. You know what I mean? Where everyone else is just like hardcore All For One stan. She's like, all right, I'll do what you say, I guess, because you have something for me. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's
it's
pretty cool depth for her as a brand new character. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Born from this situation. Yeah.
Yeah, it would definitely be like a super forward of someone to say like, I'm not gonna follow what you're saying, All For One. You know what I mean? Yeah. Maybe give me a quirk or something. You know what I mean? Like, no one would say that, but of course she stood up to him enough that he actually gave her a quirk as payment. Prepayment. You know what I mean?
It's like, so me breaking you out isn't enough for you to follow me blindly.
Yeah,
So
he recognizes that.
Yeah, and he recognizes that. And it's cool how All for One in this chapter, I feel like, you know, just strengthening that master manipulator, mastermind aspect of All for One's character. He's like, Deku's going to do this when he wakes up. When he wakes up, he's going to do this, and this. And I need you here for that moment. And it's like, okay, wait a minute. You know, like, way too much, bro. Like, this is like, this is kind of like scary levels of deduction. You know what I mean? And even on top of all that, he's like, Lady Nagant is the one that I want. And I'm about to give my regular All for One speech and see if she's going. She's not going. All right, well, I have the contingency plan. Here's a quirk.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just like, damn, this motherfucker is out here. You know what I mean? Like, All for One is not just the bad guy of the era before who doesn't know that his time is up. Like, sure, we want Shigaraki in this limelight right now. And Kohei's built him up beautifully to be the main villain of the series. But with all of that buildup behind him, we still see Big Daddy All for One making moves like this and being this much of a presence in the story. And it's like, no, you're not just out with the old, in with the new, like plot device for that. You are still a drastic villainous presence in this story, not just the torch passer, to Shigaraki. And that's fucking awesome, I think. And I bet you Kiko's extra lit after this chapter, for those reasons.
He's got the medical equipment floating behind him. Probably got it just plugged into his back with the electricity quirk going, you know what I'm saying? Keeping it running. How else is it running?
Right. Yep.
Hell yeah.
But yeah, I guess I was always under the impression that when he would give a quirk to a person, especially if they already had a quirk, that would make them into a Nomu. Right?
Oh.
Or is that just that's just the input? That's just the imposition of like multiple, because all the Nomus have like multiple quirks.
Right.
Typically.
Yeah.
Right.
So I mean, like, if
I thought it was interesting that he could just give somebody a quirk like this, because I don't think we've seen an example of it.
Right.
Yeah, actually. Now correct us in the comments if we're wrong. But now that you mention it, Eagle, I think that this is we know that he takes them and uses them for himself. And we know that Shigaraki has been loaded with them through scientific experimentation. That he makes a
Nomu with them.
And we know that
jamming them full of quirks and shit.
Right, but that's all, has a lab. You got to have syringes, you got to have beakers, you got to have all this kind of stuff to kind of create that. But he's just nonchalantly blessing people with quirks. I don't think we've seen that yet.
Especially with this Lady Nagant situation, because like even the doctor, Shigumo or whatever his name was, like he didn't even give him a quirk. He just took his shit. For longevity, you know what I'm saying? Like that was one of his most trusted associates, and like he didn't even give him a quirk.
Yeah.
So it's like, it's just interesting. I think this might be the first time we've seen an example of him just like saying, "Bow here."
Yeah, I want to say that it is, and we've played with the idea. At least I have brought it up in our reviews that All for One is very much like an apocalypse, like character in regard to coming to people at their lowest points and promising them, whatever he promises them at the exchange for cooperation. You know what I mean? But like inside of Apocalypse's character, it made a little bit more sense because we know, at least people who read Western comic books and specifically X-Men, know the history of Apocalypse. We know that he was the first mutant, quote unquote, or at least one of the first mutants, and his power was just immortality. You could kill him physically, but old age and disease wasn't going to kill him. And he lived for so long because of that, until he got to a point where he, a certain story arc plot had him, come in contact with celestial technology that gave him, the powers of, density manipulation and mass manipulation. He can make himself 9,000 feet tall. He can make himself as hard as a rock. He can make himself intangible. But another thing that he was able to do after experiencing celestial technology is grant people superpowers. He can give himself any superpower that he wanted, but he could also give superpowers to people. So that's how he kind of created his like faction of henchmen, which he called the Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse, because he would go to them, and he would go to people who could fulfill certain areas of his will in whatever way and give them superpowers in exchange for their loyalty, or whatever. So I know that that's what All for One like is trying to represent, but I don't think until right now, even though we know that he can take powers, give himself powers, exchange powers, whatever, I still cannot remember a time where he just nonchalantly said, here's your power, you know, just
Right.
with a wave of a hand to someone
Mhm.
else, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, you know, that's fucking cool as shit, you know what I mean? And if we have seen that before, like I said, let us know in the comment section. But if this is raw
Yeah.
confirmation that this is a thing right now in this chapter, then that completes the Apocalypse parallel, and I'm
Yeah.
super happy about that.
Besides his brother, obviously. Besides.
Oh, sure.
One for all, or
Yeah,
whatever,
yeah,
right? So
yeah.
yeah. I think you're right, and I wonder if it's like is the Nomu a bunch of bodies put together in the sense that like it's easier to give it multiple quirks because it's multiple bodies, multiple people, you know, mashed together like a zombie or something, or like a
Right,
Frankenstein,
I
right?
don't
Is
think
that
so,
what
because
the
if
Nomu
you remember
is?
the first Nomu,
Yeah.
they identified it as a single person.
Right.
Okay.
That just had multiple quirks.
You remember?
Sure,
Right? It was
sure,
like
yeah,
some
yeah, yeah.
criminal. They said, "Oh, this
Yeah.
guy. He's a
Yeah.
known criminal." Da da da
Yeah.
da.
Yeah, okay.
Mhm. Yeah.
The
Yeah,
USJ
I wonder how
Nomu.
this plays in.
Well,
yeah.
as far
the
as
Nomu question's a great question.
Yeah, as far as the Nomu question, Eagle, I think that like this is something that is cool because it's like we have a raw, like on paper explanation of what a Nomu is, you know, and like this plays into that, you know what I mean? Like as far as you had one quirk, you've now been given another one, multiple quirks equals Nomu in regard to like the genetic, you know, manipulation of quirks and people inside of Doc Garaki's lab. That's what makes a Nomu. But I think in this situation outside of the lab, giving someone multiple quirks, I mean, Doc Garaki would probably call Lady Nagant a Nomu, but obviously we see the differences between Lady Nagant and an actual Nomu. So I don't think that like you could call her a tried and true Nomu just because she now has multiple quirks. I think there is a level of removing the original consciousness, replacing it with, you know, a more robotic, you know, like you know, take commands and do them kind of consciousness. And then also that being has multiple quirks, and that makes the Nomu.
Right. Oh, very interesting.
But yeah, really cool fucking question.
So what do we think is her play here? Because she's obviously using the airwalk. I mean, is she skirting out?
I think I think she's
like,
really trying to accomplish this goal for one.
I mean, she does say like, I've got a mission to carry out.
Right.
So
right.
She seems like she's in it for, you know, for the
Well,
long haul here.
Yeah.
I think Deku, his plan is, here's a sniper, right? Like, I'm approaching this person who has a rifle for an arm or whatever, you know what I mean? And they have a range of so much, and so running is dumb.
Right.
They're just going to shoot me in the back, right?
Right.
So I'm going to take the fight to them. He doesn't know that she has another quirk.
Right.
So her play, I think, is take it to him. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, you think I'm stuck on the top of this building?
Oh no!
No,
I'm
I can
doing
go
aerials shooting you from different,
or
all
just go
types
straight
of
up in
shit.
the air. You know what I mean? Like I'm just gonna go up. You know what I mean? And shoot you down or something. You know what I mean? Like so I think her play is take it to the offensive. You know what I mean? Don't be a sniper in the traditional sense of in a sniper's nest and just stay in one spot and try to be hidden.
Right.
But rather move around and use your skill as a sniper that can shoot obviously incredibly accurately in many situations on the go. In any random location in the air, right?
Yeah,
that's what I think she's gonna do.
Yeah.
Going back to your comment on Icalgo as a parallel potentially for, you know, Lady Nagant and how her quirk works, but also like narratively as far as how this fight is going is very similar to Killua versus the initial confrontation with Icalgo when he was still in, you know, his technique of living dead dolls, and he was controlling that like goateed, you know, painter's hat. I don't even know what his character was supposed to be, but the dude you originally see Icalgo as who's shooting the sniper, like like when it was that moment and Killua was getting hit by the bullets, he like activated a very like shallow application of N so that he could track the trajectory of the bullets after he had been hit. And that was a really cool point in the narration that like N isn't a specialty of Killua's. Like like shooting your aura out in 360 degrees and creating a UAV is not his specialty, but he could do it just far enough to track the trajectory of the bullet once he's been hit, and he used the N to find the trajectory and still let himself be hit so that he could have, you know, that perfect idea of where the sniper was instead of using the N to dodge at the last moment. He was like, no, let me get hit by this so I can see where the shot is coming from. I feel like that's still valid inside of the, you know, the Icalgo parallel for that reason, and not just the shaping of the bullet, you know, the way that you kind of originally called that out. But hell yeah, man.
I don't know if you guys have anything else, but I think that about does it for this My Hero chapter.
Yeah, I'm good,
Yeah, I
man.
think so.
All right, well, with that, then I believe we can go ahead and get right into this piece de resistance, chapter 1013 of One Piece. Anarchy in the BM.
Big Mom.
So this is obviously a reference to the Sex Pistols song.
Yeah, Anarchy in the UK.
Yeah,
Right.
Really?
Yeah,
I didn't
Yeah,
even
for
know
sure.
yeah.
Fucking
But I love this
Sex
cover. I love this cover. Sanji
Yes.
looking down
Very
this Zoro
funny.
shark.
Look
Has
at that
Zoro
grin
sleep in
on
the
his face,
background.
like how can I Bobby Flay this this little shark with the Santori and the Haramaki. It even has
He
the
said,
Haramaki.
and then he said, and I'm gonna feed it to Zoro.
Yeah.
That's hilarious.
So good.
And he's got the fucking, he's got the perfect, chef knife in his hand from when he fought Wanze on the sea train.
Mhm.
Yep,
Fuck
yep, hell yeah.
Mhm.
But I don't know. I don't mind the situation with Big Mom too much. I mean, it's,
No. Oh yeah, we've been
I
talking
guess-
about
Oh, that
that.
was great.
You would have loved the conversations that we've had about Big Mom in the last couple of chapters about how like everyone who thinks that she is comedic relief and a plot device and all of this slanderous material that we've been hearing from Big Mom. We've been holding her down. We've been shooting Eagle. Promise you.
Yeah, like I mean, it's been some good character moments with her. Like
Yeah.
as evil and sadistic as she's been shown to be in some ways. Like for her to be the character that stands up and says like, what the fuck are you guys doing? Like, we're on
Yeah.
a nasty ass sea full of grimy motherfuckers, but there's still a code of honor.
Exactly.
Right.
And y'all are fucking up.
Exactly.
Mhm.
It's that
Ooh,
moment that
and-
shows you, like, when you think that the story is kind of like showing you that there's specific factions that have different ideologies, there are these gray characters that, like, feel like Luffy in certain moments, but feel like the Navy in other moments, and you really don't know how to feel about them. And I feel like Big Mom is a prime example of that moral blur in One Piece, because she obviously wants to protect Otama, and Otama is rolling with Nami and Usopp. So you're like, she's an ally now, and she's just a straw hat homeboy. Blah, blah, blah. But like, it's like, no, there's a lot more nuance to that situation, and if she feels the most like a pirate, I feel like, than anyone else besides like a Luffy or a Blackbeard. You know what I mean? Because there is no, intense moral alignment in any direction as far as what morality has kind of been, displayed as inside of a story like One Piece. So I just love the situation for sure.
Well, and it's nice too how they kind of like almost immediately ate their words, because like Big Mom just blasts fucking ulti with this crazy ass fucking combo attack,
Yo.
the Mazer Cannon, which we can talk about, but then immediately turns right around and says like, no, y'all are still straw hats. I'm at your fucking heels.
Yes.
And even to Otama says like, yo, you're going with them?
Yeah.
Oh, hold on, because I'll still fucking murder you.
Yeah.
Calm the fuck down. Like,
right.
so like Big Mom she's a complex character.
So
and, like,
volatile, like emotionally.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you have no idea what she's going to do next, and you can't use the history of her character to predict what she's going to do next, because her character has always been volatile in this way. You know what
I
I
think
mean?
especially with the dialogue to Otama about how like I hate it when people run away from me or whatever that means I have to kill them. I think that's like it's all very deep seated and rooted in her abandonment issues, not only with her parents but with the people who she doesn't remember eating. She assumes that they all just left her, and she assumes that she's been alone her whole life, and that anybody who has ever cared about her just will eventually abandon her. And so like I'm sure it's all very deep seated and rooted in that.
Absolutely.
That's like
great
shit
point.
people don't like to consider about a character, their actual emotions and shit. It's all just meathead shit all the time.
Especially when you have such flamboyant, character designs and personalities in the forefront. Externally, you can assume a lot about Big Mom, even inside of like what the story has told us about her before we met her character. But then as soon as you meet her character and you find out exactly everything Oda had planned for her character, it becomes a lot harder for you to go like, okay, Big Mom should do this. You don't know what the fuck Big Mom should do.
Yeah.
No one does. So shut the fuck up and just watch what she does.
Right.
Yeah, and comment on what she does, not what she should do in your eyes or in the eyes of your little Big Mom fandom of expectations up until this point. It's like Oda will tell you what the fuck her role in the story is. You know what I mean?
So, this Mazer Cannon.
Before we get there,
Yeah.
Tornado tempo.
That tornado
Nani!
tempo was nasty.
Tornado tempo.
Even though she Soro'd it instantly, the fact that she just had
Yeah.
it loaded, you know what I mean? Ready. She's like, Nami was not playing no games. No games this chapter. And I'm kind of sad, that, Ulti kind of like low diffed her conviction.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But at the same time, it's like as hype as we was for Nami to have her moment, this is a Toby Roppo. Now, Nami has shown considerable capabilities since the time skip. We've seen her do a lot more, obviously, than what she was shown in the pre-time skip, which is what the post-time skip and especially Fishman Island was kind of meant to do. And she's had her moments up until then, but she hasn't had a tried and true 1v1 with anyone since like Miss Doublefinger. You know what I mean? So even though the hype calls for it, and even though it's been a long time since we've seen Nami turn up, it just doesn't make sense for her to 1v1 a Toby fucking Roppo. And I feel like this situation did a lot for her character and a lot for her our idea of her strength, but her strength does not come from badass, fully in control 1v1 confrontations. She relies on mirages. She relies on chaos. She relies on other factors to get her through confrontations. And in the Miss Doublefinger situation, it made a lot of sense because that was the first time we were learning about the Cleam attack, and there was a whole lot of new factors involved. In this situation, all of that stuff is kind of true, but at the end of the day, the gap in skill is like so drastic for what we should think Nami is capable of up until this moment. You know what I mean? It's not pre-time skip One Piece anymore. Like the Straw Hats get very little character moments and they get very little strength moments outside of the big three. So if you're going to build Nami up as this like formidable presence in the new world, you don't want to do it in such a jarring fashion where it's like the last 1v1 confrontation you had was Miss Doublefinger and Alabasta. You've done a little bit here and there, and now the next big character moment you have also doubles as a big physical moment for you, and you're just going to win that because the situation calls for it. No, this is more Oda self-awareness. If Nami would have beaten Ulti here, power scalers would have went fucking crazy. But that's not even what I care about because fuck power scalers. I don't give a shit about their opinions about this story at all. But from an actual legitimate power scaling aspect of the story of One Piece, it would have been jarring as far as what Oda has laid out for us so far. So I love the development, even though a lot of people really wanted Nami to get a huge W here. It's like you got to get W's from Nami elsewhere than a 1v1 Toby Roppo fight. Like, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
For sure.
But man, Ulti is out of there.
Yeah, dude. Mazer cannon through the abdomen. Now, obviously, Zoan defense is going to keep her alive from something like that, but she is effectively out of the fight, at least for the next, immediate future, which is wild. That
I don't know. She got donutted. She's a donut ace.
I mean, I don't know.
That's right. That's
last time we've seen someone take a hit like this, they were done for. Like out of there.
But they weren't a Zoan.
I mean, still got her guts.
That's right.
Blown up.
That's right. Yeah, and like, it shouldn't. Like, honestly, I want to say that, like, if you take damage like this, you should die, especially since we've seen people taking damage like this and dying in One Piece. But at the same time, it's One Piece. This is a drastic effect from an attack.
Sure. Yeah.
And we can expect that the explanation for why Ulti survived something like this is because of her Zoan defense, is all I'm saying.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what kind of credence do you guys think there is to the claims that the Soul homies are making that like we could have never done this attack with Zeus? Like, do you think he's actually weaker than Hera?
Yes,
I
do think that he's weaker than Hera, but like not like as far as like raw power goes. I think that Big Mom knows how strong these things are going to be and what strength potential they have as she creates them. And what makes Zeus weaker is his personality, not his damage potential. Like we've seen what he can do when he's dialed up to 11. You know what I mean? And I don't think Hera has shown us anything outside of this combo attack that relies on Napoleon and Prometheus, anything that beats the best thing we've seen from Zeus. You know what I mean? So I don't think it's cap as far as like, could we have done this, with Zeus? Yes. But like Zeus as a character is so flawed that like you'll never get into like the opportune position to pull something like this off while especially while Nami's in the picture, you know what I mean? So I think that they're talking about his specific character flaws and not his like inherent DPS or like power flaws, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it also could be that when Big Mom created Zeus, she gave him so much soul
energy, for so much power,
and she gave more to Hera.
Exactly.
It's certainly possible.
Sure.
But I do agree with you. Most of it is the personality aspect of Zeus. Yeah,
that's a good point, Nick.
I always thought that her homies were reflections of her own personality.
That's right.
Like certain aspects of it were like, obviously, Zeus was, I don't know, I always considered him like her childlike inhibition and her just carefree nature.
Yeah.
Napoleon is like her cold, calculating self, like strategic planning. And then
Prometheus.
What the fuck? Prometheus is like her rage and her anger. Her
Love that.
wrath.
Love that.
So I'm wondering, like, what aspect of her personality would you guys consider Hera as?
Her like lustful one.
Lustful, like temptress.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like her regality, her like it's very like I don't know, proud and very
very
elegant, you know what I mean? But
you know, self-centered, very
self-centered,
yeah, things like that.
And Eagle, I think you are 100% correct, you know, in terms of what the homies are meant to represent, especially considering how Zeus, you know, how he goes out, you know what I mean? And we can talk about that later. But going back to the chapter title, Anarchy in the BM, Anarchy in the Big Mom.
Yes.
These homies are arguing, are inner fighting, and Zeus is rebelling, and this is literally Big Mom rebelling within herself. You know what I mean? Like these are aspects of her personality that are clashing.
Yeah. And another point to kind of like play into that, like how long ago did she create Prometheus, Zeus, and Napoleon? Right.
They were I think, okay, so Prometheus was the first, right? She summoned him like boom, the sun with the flower when she was young. We got that panel in her flashback.
Yep.
And I know that Zeus was there in the panel where she says to the dude, the one king, she's like, do what I want you to do or I'm gonna kill you.
Yeah. So Zeus was there for that. So she's had these homies. These are her first homies, arguably.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So like her power has refined itself how many times over since then?
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? So if these are just her first homies and they had this kind of capability, now Big Mom has fought countless battles, grown up, however much, you know what I mean? And just like has so much more experience generally that when she goes to create Hera this time,
exactly,
there's that much more experience put into the the creation of this homie, you know what I mean? So that's probably a factor as well.
Totally agree. But damn, when let's see here, like when Zeus he's so hurt, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
wild. This was heart-rending.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, huge Nami chapter, huge Big Mom chapter. I don't know, but to me, this is a Zeus chapter.
Oh,
you know what I mean? Like,
for sure.
Damn, he's so sad, and then this whole rebellion thing. You know what I mean? Like where he feels so bad for betraying Nami, and just wants at least someone to recognize that he at least has some good in him, you know what I mean? Like that he fights for something for someone. So I thought page 11 was just fantastic, you know what I mean? I was like on the edge of my seat. I was like, this is so fucking tight.
It's very,
and then Big Mom just
and I love the you know what Oda does with Zeus and his dialogue and his illustration. Page 11 is very, if I had to explain this page in like one word, I would just say it's very One Piece. You know what I mean? Like what Zeus is talking about right now and like what we're seeing is just like Oda's, like it's like Oda as fuck. The direction that Zeus is taking right now, where you finally get to see what's going on in that noggin after so much, you know. You guys know what I'm talking about. You know what I mean? Like it's like you build up a character for so long in one way, but you don't actually deep dive into their psyche and their thought process until a moment like this. And you think that you have an understanding of a character up until a certain point, and then Oda's like, okay, now here's the character. And then you're like, oh fuck, you know what I mean? And it hits you, you know, Seeing Your Pink, Doflamingo. We have a million, you know, examples of people we thought we knew before Oda decided to show us who they truly were. You know what I mean?
Right.
And it's a very One Piece, style showing of character in Zeus's final moments where you really see like what he really feels and thinks. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yep. 100%.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Oh man, that page turn though, snatch.
Yeah.
It's like you don't get drastic like expectation subverting page turns in One Piece that are this shocking all that often. You know what I mean?
Totally agree.
And like this is a very stark, page turn from what was built up the page before. You know what I mean? And then to give us another glimmer of hope inside of Nami finally going, all right, I'm going to try to save you then. And then having it be, no, not even that works. And he still gets consumed by Hera as you're really trying to save him. It makes me think that Zeus is not completely gone, because the last time we see him, he's getting fully consumed by Hera with the black balls going in at the same time. Right. So it makes me think that something is forming inside of Hera that's going to give Zeus a breakout, like control. Maybe like what the black balls did was enhance his soul power to a degree that overpowers Hera at the end of the day. Yeah. You know what I mean? But it's just going to take some time for him to eat them and consume them and digest them before he's like, humana, rah! And then, breaks out of, Hera eventually. Is how I think this is going to go.
Because especially since she didn't turn like dark and black and cloudy, rainy like he did when he eats them.
Good point.
So, like,
yes, sir.
Ooh, I love that. I was so worried that Zeus. I was like, y'all think Zeus is really out of here? And like, I'm happy to hear that like there's a glimmer of hope still.
Absolutely.
I love Zeus. I love him.
I love Zeus, so cool. And we know that like Oda wouldn't build up this potential Zeus, and Nami permanent team up, and especially if he kind of already made us think that was a thing for so long coming out of Whole Cake Island until Zeus was eventually reclaimed. And you're like, no, Oda, you don't you don't. And obviously we can't sit here and go, we know what Oda's going to do, but like, nah, son, this is one thing that I feel so confident about in regard to prediction of what Oda will do. It's like, you are not going to build Zeus up to this degree, even though you gave him such a crazy exit. This isn't the end of Zeus. You did too much, you know what I mean, to make me think that this is the absolute end of Zeus. Like, I'm sorry.
Right.
Oh my god, and then here comes Kid. Comes down with the Napoleon to kill Usopp and Co. Punk block. So, so he has the arm that blocks Napoleon, but that's like just what he put in Big Mom's path, but then he was always right behind her with the super Punk Gibson arm. That's kind of like how I saw it, because she's coming down on Usopp and then immediately in front of her is this robotic arm. But then you turn the page and there's an arm behind her head that crushes her into the ground, and Kid's behind her.
The back of her head hitting the ground.
Oh, okay. Yeah, you're right.
You can see her face, her eyes in between his fingers.
You're totally right. You are totally right. Wow, those are her eyes? That's a way more drastic reaction to the damage than I even originally thought.
Wait, where's her eyes?
Her eyes are like small black slits, and those are her cheeks.
Oh, okay. You made me think those were her eyes in between. Like, okay, so on the 14 and 15 double spread, Punk Gibson comes down. Now, at first, I thought it was grabbing her from the back of the head and pushing her face into the ground. But no, this is the hand grabbed the front of her face and crushed the back of her head into the ground. And Eagle said you can see her eyes in between the metallic fingers. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, those are her eyes, fam?
Her cheekbones.
It's her cheeks. It's her cheeks. Yeah, you see it now?
I don't know what I thought you were looking at. I was like, what are you looking at right now?
I was like, bro, if this is the reaction Big Mom has to getting crushed into the ground right now, where her eyes are bugged the fuck out.
Perfect cell exploding. Right. Oh my god. Wow. Okay, those are her cheeks.
Okay, I totally fully grasp the situation now. Thank you, Eagle.
Yeah, thank you.
I totally thought I like, because see what I thought was happening. So if you go to the bottom left of page 13 and you see the clash with Napoleon and the first arm, I thought that was like a decoy block in front of Big Mom to have her go something block Napoleon while the giant Punk Gibson hand grabbed her from the back of the head and then smashed her face into the ground while Kid was always behind her, is what I thought what was happening. And I was like, this is a drastic entrance for Kid right now.
Based on how her momentum was moving, that probably would have been easier.
Yeah, yeah.
Because like she's already kind of going forward.
Exactly.
Wow.
Exactly.
But like fucking, it's more hard body that he forced her onto her back.
Yes, it is. Yeah. It is because now you're taking her momentum and inertia and applying your own force to not only counteract that, but also pile driver into the ground after you counteract it. So it definitely is more hard body that he attacked her from the front for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then we get this panel of her.
Yeah.
This panel of her face on the top left of 15 where she says Kid. Like that really to me like is another panel that really just conveyed all of her rage. Like you took out my fucking sweet commander and just bounced off my island. Oh, it's on and
it's over with
on your fucking heels.
Right.
Let's go.
Now, how confident are we in Kid's performance from this point moving forward, where he's only really been effective in sneak attacks against Big Mom up until this point? You know what I mean? Like when Big Mom is unaware of what Kid is cooking in the background, then he creates the box that separates Zeus. Then he catches her in the middle of an attack and flips her around or, you know, whatever. It's always been a sneak attack where he's been shown in advantageous positions against Big Mom and even Kaido. But now he's actually standing up and squaring up with no tricks at all, no sneak attacks. It's me and you. You know what I mean? Like, how well do we think Kid is going to actually fare here? Now, I think the only way he actually stands a chance here is if he has like 6 or 7, like plan A through H. You know what I mean? As far as like predicting what Big Mom will do and having a, you know, side contingency plan for that. But at the same time, that could be cool to watch for a little bit. But at the end of the day, it feels like a stopgap measure. I just don't think Kid has the damage to actually do anything to Big Mom besides distract her for a little bit. You know what I mean? So it's like he wants to beat her really bad and we want to root for Kid in this way. But I just don't think he's shown us anything that should make us think that he has anything more than Big Mom distraction techniques. You know what I mean? So
totally agree. Yeah. I don't think he's gonna win for sure. I mean, he's not gonna beat her. I mean,
I don't even think he's gonna do real damage.
He might succeed in his aim to distract her, as you're kind of saying.
Yeah, he's gonna trip her a couple times. He's gonna, you know, like some shit. You know what I mean? Play with her top heaviness. I don't fucking know, but like we've seen how Kid tries to fight Big Mom, like in conjunction with Law. You know what I mean? Like they play with the fact that she's off balance and therefore you can knock her over. But like when she's stanced up ready to take damage, what the fuck are you gonna do, fam? Like you don't have element of surprise on your side, you know, when you're stanced up directly. I mean, maybe you do inside of the idea that I had that he had, you know, a bunch of quirky, sneaky, you know, you know, metal kinesis, you know, tactics up his sleeve to distract her, but that's it. I don't know. I don't know how he does anything other than just keep her at bay for a little bit. But I think that Kid's getting stepped on. If he's not entirely off screened and we do see a little bit more of this fight, I'll be surprised. But I can see Oda just going, okay, Kid looks great right now. Next time we see him, he's literally being sat on by Big Mom.
What do you think, Eagle?
I don't know. I mean, I'd like to see a little more than that from him.
Me too, dude. Don't get me wrong.
I don't know. I don't know. We could talk about it a little more at about when we start talking about this next page. But...
Sure. Yeah. Let's talk about this last little double spread here.
Luffy falling from Onigashima, right?
Luffy got off screen.
Speechless.
Kaido's dialogue.
Super tight.
Yeah, it's great for the
outcome
situation.
was obvious.
Yeah.
You gained a powerful weapon and let it go to your head, boy. Human beings don't give up hope. No, they can't give up hope. That's the problem. It's been a long time since I've got this worked up. I've failed. I should have simply cut your head off and announced my victory to everyone.
Yeah.
And at this point, a lot of people said that Kaido was crying. What do you guys think? Because I don't think so.
No.
Before we talk about whether or not Kaido is crying, which I definitely don't think he is, what I want to talk about is how much sense this makes as far as the ending of a chapter. Now, obviously, we don't like that Luffy was off screen. We want to see that fight. We want to see what happened. I think it's great for the drama to show Luffy in such an advantageous position throughout the entire course of the rooftop fight. Sure, he took a couple really big hits and he was out of commission for a little bit, but for the most part, Luffy has been showing us things that we've never seen from him and that we didn't think were possible. One thing, like, he's been boxing Kaido entirely in base form this entire rooftop fight. You know what I mean? Yep. So the fact that Luffy, who was one shot out of his strongest form the last time they fought, and then now the next time they fought after a month max of training in what's the prison? Udon. After training in Udon, and then, you know, and that was just for raw physical stuff. Because he was, you know, he had the Kairoseki shackles on, so he couldn't really train in any like real way. But like physically, stamina wise, great, that's good. Then towards the end of the Udon like storytelling, we got Hyogoro, and he taught him Ryo, and that was cool. And then he took that for a week after before the raid to hone it. That's still not enough to say you were one-shotted out of your ultimate form a month ago, and now you're boxing this man in base. Now, what a lot of made that feel really good is that he got a hockey bloom. He got a new understanding of Conqueror's Haki after taking so much damage, and just the Zenkai system inside of One Piece kind of like playing a factor, right? But at the end of the day, this power scaling is understood by Oda the most, and it's implemented in ways that make sense in the storytelling, even if we don't have raw exposition to explain every phenomena that we see. It still makes sense to Oda, and Oda, despite that exposition, still tries his best to make it make sense to us on the page. So seeing Luffy off-screen here is disheartening for a lot of people who thought they were going to see an amazing Luffy W come from this situation. Like, and just like me personally, this was necessary because, like, sure, you could have shown it as Luffy boxing him in base, handling him, Kaido getting a little bit more serious. Maybe Luffy goes into gear 2 now to fight him. Kaido gets more serious. He goes into gear 3, gear 4, whatever, you know, progression of the fight you thought was going to happen. But it makes way more sense that coming out of that adrenaline rush of the new understanding of Conqueror's Haki, that the experience of Kaido will win out in that moment and go, okay, you had this little bloom, you were feeling yourself for a little bit, you learned how to coat yourself in Conqueror's Haki, you did some damage to me, that's great, the adrenaline wears off, the fight comes back to reality, it's 1v1, you bet on Kaido, Kaido smacks him off of Onigashima. We knew that this tide shift would happen. It's not just going to be Luffy beating Kaido in base and having the advantage the entire time. The tide has to shift in a drastic way, especially in a situation like this with Kaido. I think that the drama of showing it happen off screen does a lot more for the eventual come up that we know Luffy will have when he comes back to this fight. You know what I mean? And everyone talks about the off-screen fights in One Piece, but they never thought it would happen to Luffy. Of all people. So I feel like this was a great idea from Oda to show that shift in tone, or that tide shift in the battle. And then now when Luffy comes back, we'll see all of his gears, we'll see a newfound whatever, and then the fight, I feel like, will feel a lot better than if Luffy would have just fought this entirely through and then won at the end. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
For me, it's like two big points here, right?
Yeah.
One, he can always turn into gear 4th and fly back up. You know what I mean? Like, there's no reason why he can't just come back after, you know, waking up after he's, you know, falling for a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, like, it's very easy for me to believe he will come back. The second point being, this, I feel like the statement from Kaido, you know, saying like, now they're going to keep believing that you're going to win. He's referring to the samurai. He's referring to everyone in Wano,
The
right?
Straw Hats.
But he's referring to us. You know what I mean? He's referring to the reader. You know what I mean? Like, now we're going to keep believing Luffy's going to win. Of course I'm going to keep believing Luffy's going to win. And he's going to win, you know what I mean?
Because
but
you
like,
didn't kill him. If you don't kill him, Luffy's coming back to whoop your ass. All you did was knock him off the side of the fucking platform.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Marco's there. plenty of motherfuckers are there to catch him. He could wake up mid-fall and go Gear 4, like you said, but there's a lot of reason why us and Kaido should believe that Luffy will be back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that could be a potential meta commentary.
A lot of people don't, though, man.
Yeah,
for sure.
I feel like people don't believe in Luffy. For real.
Oh, well, too bad for them. They're not paying attention.
Yeah. That's wild. That's wild. They're like, oh yeah, Luffy, this is perfect. Luffy was too young anyway. Da 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 da. I'm like, what do you think? There's about to be another like 10-year time skip? We don't have time for that.
Seriously,
wrapping this shit up, bro. He's done. Like you could tell.
He's just going to do it in a way that you're not expecting. And I feel like he has such a good understanding of his characters and the drama that he's going to put them in, that this was like the best way to show this shift in tide, in my opinion.
This is drama. This is pure drama. I love it.
And this amplifies Kaido as a threat, even that Oda would go to the extent of, after showing Luffy go so hard for so long on this rooftop, you off-screen him. You know what I mean? And it's like, okay, well, what did Kaido show us in this hybrid form that would make us think that he could even do this right now? Because he went into hybrid and still got spanked around by Luffy in base. So like, Kaido's a fraud? Kaido sucks? No, he just wasn't serious. And Luffy was feeling himself for a little bit. You have so many factors involved here that I feel like people don't take into consideration. Like, look at the Hunter x Hunter example that we always bring up on this show when Moral talks about Nen fights, and when Killua and Gon are so shook from the Pitou showing that killed Kite, they're like, you guys will never be able to fight them. I'm looking at you right now. I'm seeing your aura. It doesn't compare to them. And then Moral's like, here's why you're a child, and here's why we're professionals. Because I, as someone who has 100,000, points less of aura than my opponent, can be on my A game. And that opponent can be on their D game. And I win just because I have a better state of mind and because I had a better plan going into this fight, even though they completely outclassed me in every statistic. This is what these fights come down to, is skill and opportunity and a lot of other factors than just mana pool versus mana pool. You know what I mean? So in this situation right here, we've been talking about it throughout the course of this raid, why the Scabbards were so effective against Kaido. Kaido's mental state is very poor because he just saw dead people attack him that are fighting with the conviction of another dead man who is his like biggest point of anxiety and depression in his life. So now his mental state is just decreasing while all of their wills are in unison. And this is a willpower based energy system. So yes, it makes sense that the Scabbards would have the advantage in that moment. Kaido kind of snaps out of it. He's not drunk no more. He's like, okay, these motherfuckers got some damage on me, but now it's time to stop playing. And he one-shots all of them as soon as he's done playing around. Luffy pulls up with Zoro and the fucking supernovas, and they have this fucking amazing conviction. You have Zoro, who's essentially the reincarnation of Ryuma and is kind of also a living representation of Odin in Kaido's mind. That's decreasing his mental state even further, especially coming out of the Ashura that scarred him again. You know what I mean? There's so many things that are going into like Kaido just not understanding what the fuck is happening to him that's affecting his mental state. Meanwhile, Luffy's like, I see how the fucking King's hockey works. You can coat yourself. I'm feeling myself. I took a couple attacks. I'm like prime time Luffy right now. While the adrenaline is going and while you are still kind of discombobulated about everything that's happened up until this point. Now we kind of transition away from screen a little bit. We can assume Kaido's like, all right. Luffy, you're cool. Zoro cut me. Kid and them are gone. Let's reassess this situation. It's just me and Luffy. Okay, I'm actually going to beat this kid's ass now, despite this amazing hockey bloom he just received. It's still Kaido. One-on-one, you bet on Kaido. Here's why. You know what I mean?
Well said. Well said,
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I think that you guys got anything else?
I'm good. I'm good.
I think that about wraps this discussion up, man. What?
Yes.
What a great fucking discussion.
Welcome back once again, Eagle. That was fucking incredible.
Fucking back. I feel like Luffy coming back after the time skip, like, I just
want to say I haven't felt like this during a review in a really long time.
Hell yeah.
And I hope everybody is just as hyped that you're back as we are. So
all right, well, I think that'll do it for this episode of the Project Manga Podcast. Thank you all so much for watching. If you did, be sure to slap a like on this video if you enjoyed it. And while you're down there, subscribe to the channel for more content week to week. Also, comment on the video and let us know what you thought about this weekend jump. You know, clarify on questions we asked, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Description box down below, you can find, like I said, ways to follow all of our individual social media accounts like Twitter, join our online communities such as Discord, watch the podcast wherever you would normally watch or listen to them. Also, ways to support us like checking out our online store or our Patreon. And with that all said, this will be another stupendous episode of the Project Manga Podcast. Wrapping up, I'm your host, Eagle.
It's Noxie.
And I'm Nickums.
Darabada.